Well, hello everyone. Welcome to class today. I see we have Amanda, Melanie, and Tina are here. It has me listed as Barry, but I'm not, obviously. And if everybody can hear me, okay, just quickly tap your mic, make it active, and say, yes, I can hear you, and that you can see the screen. I want to make sure that we don't get started with recording and not have everything on the screen.
Hi, Jeff. I can hear you.
All right, great. Melanie, great. Tina, Kathy just joined. Looks like we're okay. All right. So why don't we just go ahead and start? And let me move some things off the screen here. All right. So as always, we'll start with bringing our attention into the present moment, closing your eyes and just settling into your chair and taking a deep breath in. And just hold it for a few seconds and slowly let it out. Let's take another deep breath in. Hold. And slowly let it out. And just keep everything with your awareness in this present moment as we go through our class. Put aside all the things that you have to do today after the class. And we'll begin with the opening invocations. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatikam Mavamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatiyana Shrinvanuti Pisi Dasadanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Punaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's feel the resonance in the body. The feeling of the Sanskrit sounds produces the meaning. All right, so we'll open our eyes and bring our attention to the slides for today. And I must have been a little bit mixed up last week. when I said that class 8 would be the last one, I completely forgot we have the 9th class. We have to have 9 classes in order to complete all of these. So I fixed that. We're all set for the upcoming next 2 weeks. But today we're with class 7. And we'll be looking at Mula Nakshatra, Purva Ashada, Uttara Ashada, and those will be the 3 nakshatras we'll be looking at today. You may have noticed yesterday when I sent out the links, I have never heard any of my teachers talk about the animals in the nakshatras. And so I went out and did some research on the background of it, and I added a document that explains that. And I have a grid chart that I'll also send you a little bit later, which is related to how they're paired together around the different animals, because there's a masculine and feminine expression of each of them, except for Capricorn. And it only has one, the mongoose. So we can explore that after the class. We'll put some of that in. We'll talk a little bit about it. Let me see if I can very quickly load that in the background so that we have that. Just a second here. It might be valuable to have that Word file sitting in the background. Basically, what I discovered from a lot of the research that I was looking at is, for the most part, the animals were included because when you're looking at the Kuta system for relationships, that's where you'll see the animals coming in. That it helps to look at the compatibility of individuals based on those. And that's primarily related to the sexual compatibility between the partners. So we won't get too worried about that as we go through this today. Let's see, where do I have these other, here we go, animals. I'll load those in the background, and we can look some of those as well. So the basic thing, as I was saying, is that we're becoming familiar with the nakshatras right now, and what Vedic astrology, how they use these outside of the Kuta system, is that you're a representative of that animal. And I can tell you a lot about yourself. And every animal, as I said, represents both female and masculine energies. And so when you're thinking about the deeper significance of them, you'll start unraveling a pretty interesting picture, not just about the nakshatra, but also about the behavior patterns that you'll see. So the animals are connected to the nakshatras. They give an indication of the personality, the behavior patterns, relationship with other nakshatras, not just from the, as I said, the sexual point of view, but also from the deeper spiritual connection. And so they're divided into the feminine, masculine energies. Masculine being the more dynamic nature, feminine being the passive one, just like in the signs. Feminine, masculine really has to do not with actually the gender from you having to be masculine or feminine, but it has to do with the masculine being those initiatory, springing into action energies, and feminine being more inner reflective, where you dwell deeply and you think about things before you act. Masculine, they act out of instinct without much forethought, and that's actually one of the downsides of it. But in the ancient texts that I was looking in, the explanations were kept really short, very basic, because the writers were presumed that the books they were studying with the help of their teachers, and it was left to the teacher to unlock the deeper meanings. And so the texts were used as guides to the teacher so that they covered the whole thing. And then in this way, the seers protected the sacred knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. So there's a lot written about it, about the nakshatras, their symbolism, the gunas, the doshas, and everything, but most of it is not explained, which is what we're trying to do in this class, bring it out a little bit more deeply. So to decipher what they meant, what the seers were meaning by linking each nakshatra with the animal, the aim was really to open your mind to an understanding of the depth of the knowledge that each of those keywords expresses. And I kind of mentioned this when we started the classes, that once you understand the core principle of each nakshatra, then when you start to look at these other aspects to it, they're not significant to bring out, but they're kind of an interest point to share with the person about how they behave in that particular way. Like, for example, for me, my sign is a mongoose. And what does the mongoose do? Mongoose is pretty much the only animal that takes on the cobra and beats it. And it has to do with sort of that courage to like take on some of the most difficult situations. And being, Capricorn is always moving and dramatically changing sudden and often, because it's a movable earth sign and it's about structures and things like that. And ruled by Saturn, it's going to deal with not just commitments, but fear and stress and anxiety and all those things. And so you have to be able to, in a way, do battle with that, to be able to understand the reality and the wisdom that comes from that. Nothing seems to come easy. Everything has a reality to it, and there's also a challenge to everything. And so the mongoose takes on all challenges, and that's related to Uttara Ashada, which we'll be talking about today, because there's always going to be a victory of one thing over another that happens. And we're going to talk about two of those victories and how they start. So we'll put this in the background, and we'll consider it as we go through each of the steps with it. All right, let me get back here to make sure that the chart is being displayed. It's always a challenge with all these menus that they have on this app. Get this out of the way. There we go. All right, back to the presentation. All right. So let's go to the first one, the flow of the spirit through the mind in Mula Nakshatra. And so Mula really means roots, the commencement of uprooting things. It's all about, the roots that are planted in the sign of Sagittarius, which are about beliefs. And so one of the biggest issues with the sign of Sagittarius there is that a lot of people just tend to believe because they've always believed. And we saw that with the split of the political parties over the last year. I'm not going to get into politics, but it's a prime example of the division that was going on. And you may have talked to some of your friends and they just believed what they believed because they always believed that, and they never going to change that belief. And here in Mula is where you have to uproot those and rip out by the roots those old, unquestioned and blind orthodox beliefs that we have. And so Mula's is very much about what's involved in uprooting this. So it shows that very probing, courageous, fierce, and independent side of Sagittarius. And it's in Mula where you rip out and you destroy your old ways of thinking and believing, and you ask all kinds of questions about it, and you just rip it out. You rip those weeds out and you plant new seeds in that ground. So Niriti is the deity of this, and she's really she's one who evokes a lot of fear in the Rig Veda. She's a version of Kali, but she's very much a goddess of destruction. But you know, everybody feels, oh, we don't want to destroy anything. I want it the way it is. And that was also the talk that was going on. Nobody wanted to change anything about their belief structures. They didn't want to question those things because they made them feel vulnerable. But when you look at life, you have to destroy some things if they're the right things to destroy in order to make room for something new. And this particular nakshatra is aligned. I'm sorry, I didn't put the, for some reason I went right past this Libra to Sagittarius, the degrees. I'll fix that afterwards. I missed it. But it's not between Libra and Sagittarius. It's it actually has to do with the first section of Sagittarius that happens after the Gandanta point. And it's not, it has nothing to do with K2 in that situation. This is one of the slides. Every once in a while I go past one and I miss it. There's so much detail here. So the thing about Nariti is that she is, you know, that she's this very destructive quality of Kali in a different way. It's almost like a whirlwind. And to give you an example of it, if you remember, I think it was about a year ago, maybe it was a year and a half, when we had that hurricane slam into Mexico Beach, Florida, and it just, that was on Mula Nakshatra. It just ripped the entire town out of the ground and just completely destroyed it. And that's an example of it. And we don't know what the laws of nature were determining at that time, but if you look at the energy of Mula, it's saying, okay, whatever was going on there needs to change and needs to make room for something new. And, you know, Kali, when you see her in the picture, she has like, you know, a necklace of skulls hanging around her shoulders. And she has all these, the skirt of hands. And these are related to our ignorance and our sort of negative tendencies, which is the most potent image that we see. And Kali was assembled to defeat the great buffalo demon and all these other demons. So she wears those garland of skulls and the skirt arms to represent all the wrong ideas and wrong attachments that we have in our life. And once she starts destroying things, it's very hard to stop. So this nakshatra is literally at the galactic core of our Milky Way galaxy. It's in the black hole. And in the Vedic cosmology, that's referred to as the Vishnu Nabi, which is the navel of Vishnu, from which all creation came. And so in practice with this nakshatra, it's in that last section of the zodiac. So I talked in the beginning about the three different purusharthas that exist in the chart and the four goals within each. So each one begins with the sign of Dharma. So like the first sign, the first house, going for Aries, for example. Aries, and then you have Taurus and Gemini and Cancer are all in the first Purushartha, which means the resources and the actions that we take around the Dharma of our identity, looking at it from that perspective. And each one of those has four goals. And the first goal is know who you are. Second goal is understand the resources and how do you, you know, take care of yourself? How do you feed your identity? What kind of things, what resources will you need? Jobs, money, people, all those kinds of things. The third has to do with kama, which is all about our desire. What is it that you desire, that you're interested in, that deals with your friends and your brothers and sisters if you have them? Those are the things that we desire, what we like to do, and we don't care if somebody else doesn't like it. It's what we like to do. And that, of course, relates to our ego as well. And then the fourth is how do we get peace with all of those? How do we sort of mix all those energies up, depending on what that's like in your chart, in order so you can have peace in your heart and feel comfortable in that inner part of you. And then the second has to do with working with other people and learning through them. Same four goals that happen. But that goes from the fifth, which is our whatever we have peace in our heart, we'd like to create something with that in the world. And that becomes the second one of our dharmas that relates to the fifth house and all of our creativity, mantras, past life merit, spiritual initiations, mantras, and children. Because most of the time, what people want to create in the world is children, because that's the most creative thing they can think of. So in this whole situation here, in this nakshatra, this is where the soul is realizing the limits of Earth and all the solid forms that we become so attached to. So this is the last section of the zodiac, which is the last Purusharta that begins with ninth house dharma. And that's related to the higher beliefs and the teachings that we've studied and who the teachers are and who we want to teach from that. So it also deals with things like universal things like marriage and fatherhood and the legal system and things like that. And some people talk about it as foreign travel, which is also a possibility with it. So in this particular nakshatra, what we're looking at is that we're moving into the sattvic region. The last four goals are all about letting go of the ego, facing the reality, paying back our karmas, actually, walking our talk and sharing that with society, taking what made the individual expand and grow spiritually and giving that to the collective in Aquarius. And then ultimately the liberation with the 12th sign of Pisces, where the ego we have to let the ego die. And we go back to that element of the source. And so we're going to run into some of the most mystical deities here that rule this particular section of the zodiac, because these are kind of the mystics and the very powerful serpent gods and things like that. So it's very, very interesting from that perspective. And there's two unique areas that we'll be exploring, because as we move from Mula, we're going to go into Purva Ashada and Uttara Ashada, and the Ashadas in and of themselves have a unique expression to them that's very important, to consider and to go deeper into the understanding of that. So Mula is actually about K2 because it is that area that just rips things out by the roots. And also the indicator that they talk about is if you want to know what's going on here, that this is the nakshatra where you first uproot all the darkness and ignorance in your life, and then you plant new seeds of truth in the fertile soil where all of the which we've made vacant by pulling the weeds out, but where all those weeds grew is fertile. So we put new seeds in the ground and we get them ready to sprout new roots. And so after that stress and fear and paranoia of Scorpio, it's where we look for a higher meaning and purpose in Sagittarius. So Mula, being ruled by Nritti, that god of destruction, has the power to ruin or destroy. And its basis above is breaking things apart, Bharana Shakti, and its basis below is crushing things. Though this one, gains the power in this particular area to destroy destruction as well. So when we look at the strengths and the weaknesses of these particular signs, this particular one with Mula, it shows you have a deep philosophical mind, and it's one that really enjoys digging into the darker and troubling mysteries of life. Most people don't want to go to areas that bring fear and anxiety. And the thing is, with the nakshatras, the awareness has to move and go through it. We don't bypass anything. Oftentimes you'll see when you're doing readings for people, they'll say, you know, oh, I'm just having a really horrible time. What can I do? How can I fix it? And 9 times out of 10, it's Saturn doing something. And perhaps it'll be involved with Jupiter. But it's always when the difficulties start, everybody wants it to stop. And the issue is you're just here observing. You're just the sakshat. You're supposed to learn the lesson of what it is that it's showing you. And nobody guaranteed us a happiness card. We don't get to pass go and collect $200 and be happy in our life. It wasn't the purpose that we're born here to do, be happy. We're born here to learn specific lessons based on the karmas that we haven't yet completed the results of. So there's only one way to deal with it. This is why I don't go very much for remedies. You know, about the only remedies you can do is sadhana. And it's absolutely the only remedy. You can buy a gem, put it on the right finger, have it touch the skin. You can put all kinds of them around your neck. They're not going to do anything. They're an expression of energy, and they're great to wear, but a lot of people put a lot of emphasis in this. And I know when I first got involved, I did. I let people buy me things. I tried all the gems for my sign. No influence. Mantras. Mantras are the things that change things because they're in the moment. They're the vibration of truth. So these other things, you know, they might have a value in Ayurveda for a particular area, but external things are never going to affect you the way your own consciousness will to go through the experience. So Mula is one of those signs that it's absolutely essential when that the old gets destroyed and you start over again. You certainly can't go forward to get liberated in this life if you're hanging on to a lot of old beliefs. That will just, the Jupiter energy of that sign where Mula sits is, you know, this big projection about what your beliefs are. And it also rules Pisces, which is where you can get liberated, but Mercury is debilitated there. Venus is exalted there. Mercury debilitated, you know, I think I said this one of the last weeks, is where we, you know, we don't make the best decisions and we don't think things through very well, and we're probably better off not talking about it because the story's not going to be a very good one, even if it's true. And so what happens to a lot of people, instead of escaping into consciousness, is they escape into prison, and that shows up in Pisces. And like I said, you go to a jail somewhere and you say, "What are you in here for?" And they go, "I'm innocent. I didn't do anything." That's typically the story you're going to hear from a Mercury debilitated. And in this section of the chart, everything is about sattva. So everything is being motivated for that higher wisdom and that higher understanding of what are all these attachments. We've gone around the zodiac. We have all these likes, dislikes, ways of loving, ways of clinging, ways of doing battle, ways of being king to being a servant. And in this last section is all about the motivation to bring out peace, love, and goodness in the world. And this is a good time for this because the planets have primarily been in this section of the chart for, you know, pretty much almost the last year. And now, right now, since the beginning of this year, everything is flowing through that last 4 signs in the zodiac. So these are real important things. So the strength here is that look at the innate awareness of your human motivations and your psychology and the natural intuition that helps you deal with people. See, when you're uprooting things, you're coming from a standpoint of understanding that things are always in a state of change. And Mula sits in the sign of Sagittarius, which is a dual sign, which shows this ability, some people call it cardinal, but to me it's more of a Western astrology term, so called a dual sign, which consists of this ability to move as a very stable person and yet to have the flexibility to switch back and forth. So people, when you have these dual signs, they sit on the corners of the chart, and they're not just there to make them rectangles. It shows the skill of that particular sign to be able to take on a project and very steadily work through it and be successful in it. But if they're working with somebody else and they're having difficulty, these dual signs allow them the flexibility to step in and take over and complete it just as successfully. The thing about the dual signs is if it's your first sign, you're always looking at whether you should stay the course or change. And so how well you do that will determine your level of success in life. And tends to be that the more stable we are in things, the more likely we are to succeed in those things. And so one of the things that you can see here, the third strength, is you're able to change course easily when it's necessary. And you possess an easy tolerance for life's changes and uncertainties because you can hold the ground during the time when there's uncertainties and act in a stable way. And when change happens and it's a need to flow with the change, you have that ability to do that. So the shadow issues of it are you transform destruction into a force of good. That's the theme for you. But there is a tendency to cut or break things. So this is a lot of times it depends on the sign for a person, but this can be like if this was someone's 8th house, like it is for Taurus people, you can see Taurus people don't like change. They're very stable, fixed, and they will change, but when you have a fixed sign of Earth, like a Taurus sign, these people, they don't take change easily, and you'll have to insist on it, and you'll see the stubborn resistance to wanting to change. Now, you're going to find Taurus people who don't mind changing, but usually what you'll see, because they're very reflective, it's a feminine sign, that as they sort of look at all the attachments and everything to the world, they can, it's hard to break those attachments, whether they're good or bad, because something bad is at least there, at least doesn't have to change. So you'll see relationships, bad relationships better than no relationship kind of thing. And so here in Mula, you have to kind of put all that in a totally different perspective. And so sometimes it ends up, cutting through and breaking things. You may be convinced that you're breaking the person or thing for their own good, but you have to be careful with that idea because you might destroy something that you didn't really intend to destroy. And in the 8th house, you have no control over it. So they may destroy it for you. So arrogance, violence, and cruelty are also possible. If this darker side is not channeled towards destroying your own limitations, rather than appointing yourself as the one who gets to destroy the limitations of others. So, here again, this is really important when you look at this. Everything in your chart is about you and using those energies on you. The only time you could consider it not that is if you're considering the 7th house, which deals with others. Then the qualities of that 7th house will show you how it always is and how you deal with everybody all the time. So in this particular situation, you have to pay attention to that thing that you don't step up and try to become the person who decides those destructions. So it's much more easily to have the tolerance for all the changes and move forward like that. But Mula will uproot things and bring things to light as well. And we've been seeing it sort of happening over the last number of months. A lot of things coming into the light, out of the dark, some things getting uprooted, all the ideas, all the management principles are all being turned around, all being uprooted through Mula, as an example of that. So when we look at the chart interpretation, this is the 19th nakshatra in the zodiac, and it sits, what I would say is the center of Sagittarius, because it's related to the dual fire. It's a fire sign, and that the dual nature I was talking about. And this is where you have to be courageous, fierce, and independent. And if you know anybody who's a Sagittarius, you'll see this is it definitely. They like to do things. They get all fired up. They set a direction, a clear goal. They always have a strong vision, and they want to act because it's a masculine sign. They don't want to wait, and holding them back for the right action is always difficult for them. And when they go to act, the first thing they do is apply their values, which they have to start developing a strategy around, because that's in Capricorn. That what resources are you going to need? What's that job going to look like? And for a lot of Sagittarius people, their second house is about how they're going to put their vision into play, into action as a strategy, and how are they going to iterate on it. And so this is important when we look at the fact that it's in the 9th sign of the zodiac, starting with Aries as the first. In Sagittarius, we're looking at the outer meaning of things and the purpose. What's the higher purpose that we want to pursue? So this is embedded in hope and optimism and what you believe in. So you must have an authentic purpose and a meaning, not just blind faith and ungrounded optimism. So this is where you need to question your beliefs, and you need to practice what you preach. So if you're doing yoga, you're doing pranayama and meditation, you're doing it all the time. You're not just telling people about it. And you have to ask a lot of questions. When we adhere to blind beliefs, like people accepting, some certain understanding of God, for example, some higher belief structure, even a belief in no God is still a belief. So all these kinds of things, people have a tendency to just believe, and they believe blindly because they don't have any questions. And then, so let's just say something happens where a baby falls off the 9th floor of a hotel and dies. And so they can't explain it, so they blame God. But if you're doing your practices, you can explain it. And when you can explain it, it means you understand it. A lot of people say, well, I understand that stuff. And then you say, well, explain it to me. And they can't explain it. They'll mumble around, and a lot of things won't get brought out. So this is the most important area, because if we don't poke holes in our fanatical beliefs and all that orthodoxy, we don't stay up with the changes that are happening in the world. And Sagittarius and Gemini are the 2 points along the galactic plane where the most change happens. Always changing, always shifting back and forth. So when we look at that in Sagittarius, questioning those beliefs and practicing so that you can explain it to people. So as the 9th sign, we're looking at all the higher philosophies, our religious beliefs, if we want to think of them as religious, our purpose. And this is 9 times out of 10, the number one thing somebody will come into you asking for a reading. It's like, oh, let me guess. Let's see. You want to know what's your life purpose? Why are you here? And what partner are you going to have? And when all your problems are going to show up, which are usually the first 3 or 4 things they say. And they want to boil the ocean. Like, when in my life am I going to have difficulties? Well, let's see. How many days in the year? How long do you plan to live? That's boiling the ocean. It's impossible to know. So, but people ask it all the time. So this is where they need to question these kinds of things. And so here we're dealing with, what's ethical, what's moral, and a sense of meaning. And we look at our teachers, the teachings of others, and what we've learned. And this is the sign of universal dharma, the highest It's related to, teachers, gurus, God's grace, luck. Now, all the Dharma signs will produce luck, but this is the luck that you only get when God decides to bestow it on you. And this is the highest universal purpose that we can have in life. And so this relates to real Dharma shaping life events. And when you look at the Nakshatras and you're doing like a spiritual reading for somebody, you're dealing with their ninth house, you're going to see where their highest expression in life is taking its form. And you'll see it in the nakshatra, you'll see it in the planets that are gathered there. And if there's no planets there, what do they rule and where are they? And what are the dashas that are running? What are the Uttara, Mahadasha, Uttara, and what's the Bhukti, if you want to look that far into it? So you'll see every single one of these things will be active. And we think we're running our lives. There's a series of patterns that are happening there. And so this is a K2 event because it's a moksha type of event. It's related to the things of K2. So this gives you a real sharp, internally focused mind and a respect for tradition because it's traditional. K2 is about all your earlier past lives, including when you were a child, and all the expertise that you have. And so wherever it falls in your chart, that's where you're going to be really scrutinizing things. And it's your most metaphysical energy. So if it doesn't, what usually happens is it's where you're a perfectionist, but you won't believe it because when you start looking at the K2 energy, all you're noticing is where it's not perfect. And this world isn't perfect. So the scrutiny is extremely important in that divine discontent. It's like almost a disgust with the world. So we pull back. We don't want anything to do with it. You'll often hear that K2 part is like, I don't know if I want to come into this world, but you'll see things from K2, like people coming back into your life, old habits coming back, remembering things from the past. It's a very liberating planet. K2 is the mokshakaraka of Pisces, for example, because it goes from Pisces into Aries, which is Ashwini, which is ruled by K2. So K2 is thought of as the mokshakaraka, the indicator of liberation in a chart. And you can see here, you absolutely can liberate yourself from old ideas and beliefs and make things fresh. So dissatisfaction, detachment, withdrawal, solitude, scrutinizing, all those kinds of things are what we have our focus on. And it's kind of like our own inner tornado, not tornado, but volcanic energy. And a lot of times you may see skin problems come up wherever K2 is. I have a Sagittarius friend just covered with all kinds of sores on her body over the last year and a half as K2 has been sort of moving through that area of the chart. So this is an area where we have to understand things and look at and understand what the discontent is and have some dispassion around that. And we'll tend to be very narrow focused because we're just really drilling down on what it is that that K2 is revealing for us. And K2 is pretty all-knowing sometimes. So don't be surprised when you get to the end of a reading and your K2 starts telling you things. It's very possible that that can happen. And don't hesitate to share those. So the next thing about the ninth sign is it deals with the destruction of ignorance and negativity. Mula is all about that. So you need to lose your limiting ideas of how life should be and reassess the actions that bind you to that idea if you're going to grow in a truthful understanding. And the biggest problem everybody had over the last 1.5 years was their beliefs. They caused them the biggest problem. Some people lost their friends over their beliefs. as an example, divisions in family and all that stuff. So questioning our beliefs and uprooting them and planting new ones, very important. So with Nritti here as the version of Kali, she's known as the goddess of calamity, and she's brought forth referring to the destruction that's necessary for your rebirth. So her fierce nature destroys the ignorance and our attachments to all the lower forms of power and worldliness that we think we control, which we don't. As Kali, she's depicted as ecstatically dancing in a graveyard. And she's wearing that all the severed heads and the skirt made of the dangling arms. And so it's a pretty stark image. You know, it reveals that divine necessity to destroy our mental preconceptions and all of our selfish grasping and the need to possess things. It's like, it's my belief. I want to believe it. I don't care what you think about it. And I'll just believe it. So start to notice that Mula energy. And I put a bunch of your charts in the background for when we start to explore that, because I think at least 3 of you have Mula Nakshatra, and some of you have some of the other ones we're going to talk about today. So now, before we move into the Ashadas, so I want you to think about this process of spiritual growth. So we're in that first section that if you want to think of it as a dharmic kind of thing, because it starts with Mula in that section of the Purushartha in the zodiac, and we uproot and we get our beliefs set up so that we're walking our talk and we can explain it to people, and then we practice it. And so Purva and Uttara Ashada, called the Ashadas, have a power of expression. So they move from Mula into Purva and then into Uttara Ashada. And these show the soul is looking to emerge victorious over all the dense vibration of karma and all that veiling illusionary effect of our actions and our life on earth. So this is the point where we're facing things like Capricorn and Aquarius, and we're dealing with what do we do after we plant those seeds. So when we plant the seeds, the bridge out of Sagittarius into the first section of Capricorn starts with Purva Ashada. And so what we're going to be looking at with the Ashadas is through love and devotion and adherence to truth and righteousness, the soul can shed the fear and ignorance of the world, and it can unite with its highest nature. So think about all that Mula energy and people just believing and needing to question, and they don't question, or they do question, and you'll see different ways that people will go about this energy. Like if somebody has K2 there, they might not want to question. They might think that they already know it all. That's a completely possible situation. And they can get in Sagittarius, you can get pretty fanatical about what you believe in, especially if it's orthodoxy. And so you'll start preaching that orthodoxy, but then somebody will say, well, explain it to me, because it just sounds like a bunch of hoo-ha. And the person, if they're good, they can explain it. And so the first stage after you've planted the seeds is for those new beliefs to grow and prosper and expand. They have to be watered. And so the beginning part of it is through our love and our devotion and our adherence to truth. That's where we can shed all the fear and ignorance of the world. And what we do is we start to see the roots sprouting. When I was with the Maharishi, he used to say, he was a Sagittarius, and the first thing he would say to people was, you know, we're going to redefine spirituality in terms of science. That's Mula. Let's rip out all those beliefs of, you know, spirituality, and let's understand it scientifically. And then what he would say is, water the root to enjoy the fruit. And that's Purva Ashada. So once you rip out the beliefs and you get this whole science thing going, you want to keep it growing. So you keep putting in your devotion, your love, and looking at what's true and exploring it, uprooting things, looking at it, and then there it is. These are the seeds. Now let's nurture those seeds. That's what Purva Ashada leads to. And the Ashadas start with that section of how well you can nurture those new roots that you're growing from those seeds that you planted. And this nakshatra influences the growth of your life through Purva Ashada. And it does it so that you achieve the early victory. So this is where you begin to enjoy the fruits of your actions. So you can see that sort of phrase that Maharshi used to say to us all the time was water the root to enjoy the fruit. There was even a song for it. And you'll see this in your life. There's a need at some point you feel literally dry. I need to change everything. I need to uproot what I'm doing. I'm going through this process right now. In 2 weeks, I'm moving again from where I am. And I've been getting rid of things from 20 years ago that I've been hauling around. It's an uprooting kind of process that's happening. And it started when the moon went through Mula a few weeks ago. So I started throwing out all this stuff and things I didn't need, the extra weight that I was attached to for some reason. So how well, now the other thing is for the victories to come with each of these. You'll see, well, how well do you do that thing? How well do you attend to the roots? So let's say you're growing your own garden and now you got the vegetables and the fruits and you can enjoy them now. You're beginning to eat them. And so you can get so lost in enjoying them and eating the fruit that you forget to keep watering the root. So the early victory is getting them to root and produce fruit, and the later victory is to continue to enjoy that by continuing to water the roots and don't stop. So this is like once you get that deeper experience from Sagittarius, it gives you that hope. You've questioned the beliefs, you're ready to go and act on it. So at that point, this is the energy that's saying, if you really want to win the later victory, you got a good start going here. So don't stop. Keep doing what you're doing and moving. That moves into out of Sagittarius into Capricorn. And so the early victory and success that you attain will determine how successful you're going to be later. Because if you don't change everything and start doing practicing and questioning everything, you won't do the things that are essential. You won't line up with the godly forces, the universal gods, which are going to show up in Uttara Ashada, which are called the Vishwadevas. And so your ultimate victory is ensured and your growth continues to prosper and expand when you move into the section of Uttara Ashada, which is ruled by the sun, that's related to organizing the universal powers. So this happens in Capricorn. And Capricorn is the sign where spirit takes form in a practical, concrete way. And so let's move into these Ashadas. We've pretty much described everything about Purva Ashada already, but this, like I said, it shows that devotional nature and the need to have some discrimination with your beliefs. Otherwise, you become a fanatic. And just as an example of the expression of that, so we had Ketu in Purva Ashada in 2001 on 9/11, and we had Rahu in Ardra in Gemini. So what happened there? So the towers came down, the twin towers fell in Gemini by whatever force it was. It certainly wasn't airplanes. And Ardra shows man-made disasters. It also shows natural disasters. In 2004, the earthquake in the Indian Ocean near Banda Aceh, which created the huge tsunamis that killed all those people right after Christmas on the beach, that was Ardra. Ardra is about moist. It's about natural disasters. When we had Katrina hit down in Louisiana, that was Ardra Nakshatra. When we had the hurricane hit Houston just a couple of years ago, that was Ardra Nakshatra. And so you start seeing these things, and then you realize when the towers went down, what happened? Somebody suggested it was Muslims who did it. And we don't know, because, we don't know what took those things out. We may know, but nobody's talking about it. And so that's K2 energy, and look at the fanaticism. People went out and signed up to go to Iraq, and people just became absolutely fundamentalist about it, and everybody started hating Muslims. And now we're starting to see things in a different light. We're beginning to realize that they're not the curse in our life, and that maybe we were told something that uprooted our previous beliefs, and we didn't question it, and we didn't learn what the truth was, and we didn't. We never learned what happened. There was an investigation, but that's still kind of sitting on the shelf. I think we're going to see something come out of that, because with Jupiter and Saturn together in Capricorn, which is about the government and impacting the world, and we got Pluto there, there's going to be some huge event. It's coming, and I think it's coming pretty soon, and we're going to know everything. So this is Purva Ashada, where we then begin to focus on that ocean of love. So it's ruled by the deity Apis, who's the god of the ocean, and it's actually the goddess, because we'll be seeing in a couple of days, Varuna is the masculine god of water, and Apis is the feminine one. So they're like the counterparts, and we'll see Apis deals with all kinds of ways of dealing with, like, our body. When we look at the stress and fear and anxiety we have in our body, those energies affect all of the glands in our body that process water. And so Apis is, one of the tattvas. And so when Apis is balanced in our life, we feel inspired, we can feel the love and that interest in wanting to go forward with that. So that's about Apis. So it's related to all that nurturing that flows from your heart, and what do you create with it? And so you create in the structures with a strategy in Capricorn, in Uttara, and you do it in a particular way, which we'll talk about in just a second. So this nurturing and love is what determines the early victories in your life, like how the love and nurturing of your childhood played a big role in the later victories in your life, or how well you water and nurture those things in your life determines the later victory that will come through the next nakshatra. So Purva Ashada is ruled by Apis, the waters, and its power is that of invigoration, called Varchagrahana Shakti, and its basis above is strength. It's to have strong plants, strong things, strong beliefs growing. And its basis below is connection. And through both of these, you gain like a luster. So being able to, really focus on what's true, and then commit to acting on that thing, practicing it, all of those things, that brings the luster out of it, because it's in the nakshatras that we're going to be talking about today, where you start to see enlightenment unfolding in your life. This is the Sattvic region. This is where you go to get liberated. So the strength here is this natural ability that you'll have to connect and empathize with people. And that makes you popular and able to gain recognition and influence over the masses. And that's because people can see that you share your love and you're doing it in a nurturing way for people. And you'll see this expressed in your life, and people will comment on it all the time. So it also shows you have this natural gift for nurturing others, and it shows you're likely wield that influence with integrity. And the reason for the integrity is that you have an integrity of beliefs because you can explain it. And it sits on the very precipice of Capricorn. And Uttara Ashada picks up at the point where Purva Ashada lets go, but depending on when you were born, you can also have Uttara Ashada in Sagittarius. So it's not until we get to Shravana that you're actually centered in Capricorn. But some people, a lot of Capricorns I know, and myself included, my ascendant is Uttara Ashada. And it's not in Sagittarius. So you exhibit like a deep philosophical nature, and one that senses the method of unifying all your long-term vision with your everyday needs. So you could also be quite attractive and appealing to people because it's Venus energy. Venus is the planet that rules Purva Ashada. So that's related to beauty, sensuality, well-mannered, all the sort of Venus things which are heaven on earth in Taurus, and which are more shallow and socially related to being liked and appreciated. So those are the things which make you attractive and appealing. And when Venus Bhuktis, Antaradashas, or Mahadashas run, it's going to activate Purva Ashada because it's a Venus ruled planet. So the shadow issues are that you have to be really careful not to simplify, to just simply do what you like without considering the outcomes. The appearance or the opinions of others are going to be important. And that has to do with that sort of dual sign that's happening there as well. And so that's an important thing to understand. Now we're dealing with, this is the animal's a monkey. So when you think of this, you may see people, they become kind of playful. In their love, they become kind of monkey-like, precocious, explorative, observant. If you've ever watched a monkey and how they'll just sit chewing and staring at you and then, scratching their head in other places. And you can see that kind of expression in the way you present yourself. It's that sort of monkey mind to be curious about what's going on, and you need the curiosity to like nurture. What am I going to get if I keep nurturing these seeds I just planted? What's going to come out of that? So you can see that sort of monkeyish sort of playfulness that can come because Venus, it's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel good, all that stuff. And so it shows up here in Purva Ashada as part of the nurturing. So the good traces that you gain from others, you can destroy them, pretty quickly with an arrogant approach. Well, look at what monkeys do. They take everything apart. And they'll jump in and they'll take your hat. If there's a fence and you're too close to it, your hat's gone. If you got something hanging around your neck, they might take that off. As an example of that, it's kind of like they're kind of arrogant the way they act. They do what they want to do. They're monkeys. So your philosophical nature needs to be tested, and you got to remain open. And not allowed to calcify into like some dogma, your karma ran over my dogma, those kind of things, or to be conditioned upon obedience to you or agreement with you. So those things, you can see the hints of the Sagittarius energy where fanaticism and arrogance, like, well, I believe that. That can show up in Purva Ashada because you've just uprooted and put some new seeds in the ground, and you're having to learn how to love and nurture those things. You're learning how to water the roots of your own existence so that you can begin to enjoy the greater spiritual expression of them. So when we look at this as a nakshatra chart interpretation, this is the 20th nakshatra, and it resides in that juncture between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And as I said, it means earlier victory, ruled by Venus. It shows that you're going to place an emphasis on love, beauty, and finding happiness in your life. And as the ninth sign, that's going to involve a lot of beliefs and your purpose, all your higher philosophies, the ethical principles, and a sense of meaning. This is like I said, the number one thing everybody wants to get to right away in their chart. And if you start looking at where their Dharma planets collect, if they have a Dharma house, and those are collecting 3 or 4 planets there, at least 3, you're going to see that that house and that sign and those planets are pretty important in that person's life. And if it's their 9th house, this is going to involve a lot of the Dharma shaping things. You may see other things, other Dharma signs being collected, but when you see a stellium in a Dharma sign, like 1st, 5th, 9th house, you're going to see a very creative expression coming out of that. And so those are the things that deal with the meaning and purpose of that. And you're going to probably notice at some point during the reading, you look at that house, you look at the nakshatras that are active in there. It could be Magga, it could be whoever, whatever their ascendant is, will determine that. And but the main thing is that this is going to bring an emphasis on love, beauty, happiness, and connection. That's sort of the theme of this. And so it shows that you're, as I said before, you're trying to sort of supersede and get beyond all the vibrations of karma and the illusion that you may see yourself lost in. And love and devotion and adherence to truth, those are the things that really bring out the highest nature in the world. And they get rid of all the fear and ignorance. So remember, fear, false evidence appearing real. You always think it's going to happen in the future. It never happens. You just think it might. And I challenge you to find a time when you had a fear, a genuine fear of something, and it never happened. And especially if it's your 8th house, you'll see this tremendously showing. And it'll show something about the spiritual energy of the nakshatra that's causing that issue. So ruling planet being Venus, we talked about, the manners, the hedonism. It's also about compromise and sex and, all the Venus related things. And so being the goddess of the ocean, that Apis is here in this sign, this relates to the terrestrial waters as well, because Apis is all about water. And so it is her waters that cleanse and nourish us. It's the waters from the higher levels of consciousness. Water is what we need to grow our food so that you can eat and nourish the body. It refers to your love and joy that also nourishes your heart. The fuel of the ceremonial lamps that are placed on the altar used in Vedic rituals. It's a consumable food source, like they put ghee in there, clarified butter, or they'll put essential oils. Sometimes they'll use sesame oil. So the edible fuel is an offering of love to the divine within us. And when the fire of our mind, because it's coming from Sag, this fire sign, is fueled by the water of love in the heart, the flames shine bright and sweet, and our path becomes illumined. Now, fire signs, you can lead with passion and clarity, or you can, fire signs can also produce a lot of smoke and a lot of, hiding putting the smoke in front of the things that we want to see. So the best thing to do is, of course, focus on what is the essential inspiration of that. What is the real fire behind it? And in Sagittarius is where we do that best if we accept the Purva Ashada and we start to nurture those things. So the strengths and the shadows that flow from that are that, first of all, you'll have a natural ability to connect and empathize with people. It makes you popular and able to gain recognition and influence over the masses. And you'll have a natural gift of nurturing others, which shows you'll likely wield that influence with integrity. The integrity comes from that juncture with Capricorn. Both Capricorn and Leo are related to points of high integrity, um, good name, all of those kinds of things, and an upholder of truth, those sorts of things. They're most recognized by the Sun and Saturn, which brings Capricorn and Leo into the picture. So this shows the deep philosophical nature, and one that senses a method of unifying all your long-term vision with your everyday needs. So you can also be quite attractive and appealing. That's hinting at the strategy. So you're taking a philosophical nature and you're using the sense of a method of how to unify a longer term vision with your needs. That's moving into Capricorn, where you're continually adjusting and shifting dramatically, sudden and often, the structures in your life, which are around the needs and the things that you have. So you can see the movement of that. The shadow issue is that you have to be careful not to just simply do what you like to do without considering the outcome of it, and the appearance of your opinions. The good traces that you gain from others, you can quickly destroy those, as we said. So let's move on to the chart interpretation. With Purva Ashada, it's the 20th nakshatra. And it sits, as I said, in that juncture between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And it leads to the earlier victory. Being ruled by Venus, it shows that you place an emphasis on love, beauty, finding happiness. We talked about all of these things. And so when we move into and out of the Ashadas, you can see the growth here of the nurturing, the feeding yourself with love and nurturing, all of that, how well that prepares you, because you're also nurturing yourself through your practices, and you're learning to believe, and you're learning to practice, and you're learning to understand how nurturing that is in your life. So now we want to line up with the later victory. This is one of my favorite nakshatras, not just because I was born in an ascendant on it, but I really love the message that comes from the background of it. And when I went through one of my most lowest periods in my life, I studied this nakshatra, which helped me to really understand a lot about myself, because I was born with no planet in the first house. So, the psychology is, it took me a long time to figure out who I was, as an example of that. And so this deity is related to the Vishwadevas, and they're the universal gods, and they were born from Dharma and the god Dharma and the goddess Vishwa. And these deal with 10 universal principles. And the most important of them is truth, which is Dharma, time, which is Kala. You only have so much time. Don't waste it. Use it right. You need to be good. Your desires need to be aligned with the highest light and power that you can put forward, because it's ruled by the sun, and it brings out your skill as well. So the universal powers govern this nakshatra. So truth, time, goodness, desire, and then there's a bunch of other ones like being firm, including the knowledge of your ancestors, taking it to the peak of perfection, being bright, all of those kinds of things. Now, these are all related to the symbols, the machan, the elephant tusk, the square. So a machan is like a blind, they're on stilts. They're used for hunting. And, they'll be up on these boxes, like hunting, wild animals and things like that. So the machan is one example. And then the elephant's tusk, because this is about piercing deeply into life and understanding the deeper understanding of your soul's need for liberation and all of that. And elephants, when they're dealing with their tusk, when you read the document I put together for Uttara Ashada in the word section for this particular class, you'll see the explanation of that, where I go through the all the advantages that the elephant has. Like, they're huge and they're powerful, and they're used by armies to penetrate through embattlements. You know, they were often involved in those things. The elephants climbed the Alps and came into different parts of the world, uh, and so they can pretty much adapt to any environment. They have a connection to their lineage, like the matriarchs of the elephants. They remember everything and they pass it on through the other matriarchs in the herd. So when there's a need for water, they know exactly where to go. They know where they've had to go in the past. And so the tusks are really important because the color of the tusk allows the elephants to decide what their relationship with each other is. And if you've ever been able to be close to one, and when I was at my guru's ashram in Bangalore, at Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's, he has two elephants. And on my birthday, he had them bless me. And you can put a little needle in your hand and they can pick it up with their snout. So they're so nimble in what they can do. So this shows a lot of very powerful, because of the sun's light, very powerful concepts, that are very soul-based, very, related to that part of us that can sometimes be very overbearing, very overpowering and burning, as an example of it. So, and this is what's called a fixed nakshatra. It's also related to the square, which has to do with, the thing about the square is it's stable. It's a foundation. It's one of the most powerful structures that we know, because it deals with longevity, and that's why we build our houses in these square and rectangle types of shapes, because they're stronger that way. They're built stronger, and that fixed nature shows that ability to always be present, to be there, and to be dealing with these issues, to deal with the battles, to deal with all the knowledge that we need, and to be stable in that, to be a strong ground. And so the race is, or the gana is a manusha, which means essentially a being of somewhat radiance that is a true human being. They have all these high qualities of integrity about them, and this is where Saturn becomes, it's Saturn's own house. So this is where Saturn brings out the commitment, all those things, to work hard until you see the light at the end of the tunnel, to handle the stress, even if it means to be isolated, all those kinds of things. And I spent a lot of time in my life isolated from people, for various reasons. So the story here with the universal gods being born of the god of Dharma and the goddess of Vishwa are related to those 10 kind of principles. And it's like dealing with the universal gods. How well do you treat them? So you can see them illumined in a lot of the Indian epics, such as the Bhagavad Gita, for example. There was that case where there was the struggle between dharma and kama, between truth and desire, was illustrated there. So like Arjuna was the charioteer, or he was supposed to be the one that moved with Krishna, and he was the one as a warrior who needed to do the battle. But Arjuna, he needed to gain the knowledge of the self, because the battle he was going to have on the field of Kurukshetra, which was the Mahabharata was all about, had to do with having to kill his own relatives. And he was like, how can I do that? And so Krishna said, Nistragunya Bhavarjuna, go back to before the 3 gunas, before you started being binded to this body, you were pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, you can't cut it, you can't burn it, you can't kill it, you can't stain it. It's unbounded, universal. It's pure. And that's what you are. So he said to them, go there, that's the self. And then he showed him his self, and he treated him as a great friend. And so what you see there is he understood, oh my gosh, even if somebody killed this body, I wouldn't go anywhere. I would come back to life. I would just bring on another body. And so with that, he had the confidence to be able to move forward and not just, he remembered that's his duty. I'm a warrior, I'm a kshatriya. And so it made him willing to go along with those universal gods that support that in accordance with a greater truth than just, I don't know if I like it, I don't know if I want to deal with that. So likes and dislikes have nothing to do with this. So the inspiration of Sagittarius becoming this concrete spiritual reality of Capricorn is what is happening in that situation. And so all that sudden dramatic change that made Arjuna pull back, Krishna said, look, you're ever present. You are the soul. That doesn't go anywhere. That's the self. Nothing could be more powerful than that. You can see all that energy of the sun. So the later victories in life come as a result of how well you handle those godly forces. And to do that, you need to have your sadhana in place. Right in this area is where the blueprint source of creation happens, where manifestation literally takes place here. It's called the Ritam Parapragya, a mind full of rhythm. I think we talked about it in one of the other nakshatras. And it's where Purana, pure frozen consciousness for the potential to manifest, starts to become lively. And that's Purana, frozen, starts to maintain, to percolate, become enlivened and activated, bubbles, rhythmically bubbling, bouncing. And people who have Uttara Ashada often, like you'll see when you're driving down the road, and I do this all the time, listening to music and tapping on the steering wheel. And I used to be a drummer when I was younger. And you'll see all of that rhythmical stuff coming out in Capricorn. So Bhara means full of, and Pragya means a mindful, a rhythm. And that's called the blueprint of creation. It's where the energy comes from the gap and starts creating forms from spirit. And that resides in Capricorn, right before Shravana. So in between Uttarashada and Shravana. So the inspiration starts becoming a concrete reality. So we start to focus on truth, desire, actions. You'll be making a lot of decisions, things that you did in the past. Shani doesn't just control everything and put pressure on everything. Name means peace. That's why Saturn's called Shani, which means in order to have peace, you have to let go of control. And in the process of that means align with your truth, align with your dharma, align with the type of desire, align with the action that's necessary. You need to act, and align around the time. Don't waste your time. At any moment it could be up. So these are chief among the Vishwadevas. And so there's always going to be a victory of one thing or another. You'll see this with Capricorns, and you'll hear some Jyotishi saying, oh, Capricorns just want to win. They have all this ambition and everything. And, I think that's a conditional statement based on planets and, which nakshatras are active and all those things. Being a Capricorn, you win some, you lose some. And sometimes you lose them as big as you win them. And I can attest to that for sure. But the thing is that there's this victory, there's always some victory that comes, even when you think you've lost. It's taken something and it's made it more practical in your life. And it's made you have to think and strategize what it is you want to do, because these are structures that are moving around a lot. You're moving them around. And they deal with how it impacts the world because it's the 10th sign of the world. So a lot of the most important thing here is that the victory is of your struggle over your triumph. But a lot of people fall in love with their failures and then they become their truths. It's like they're always telling you the story about, the time that time caught up with them, and this bad thing happened to them, all of those kinds of things. And then what you're doing is you're just cementing this love for your failures. And then you'll spend a whole lot of time on them. So you take action based on those failures, and you waste a lot of time. And so one of the things that happens when you get into Capricorn is it's a feminine earth sign. And earth signs always go within, if they're about the depth of them. And you'll see these people, like people that are earth signs like Virgo and Taurus and Capricorn, these people are deep. They're always going inward. They're deep in thought, deep in what they create, and they're very detail oriented kinds of people, hands-on, practical, those kinds of things. And so they try a lot of things, and when they make mistakes, you have to let them go. Okay, put them to rest. And if you want to produce a different result, you need to take different actions, and you need to connect those to different truths. And this is the power of the Vishwadevas to grant that victory to you. So your adherence to the universal laws guarantees it. The soul's liberation depends on how well you handle the Vishwadevas. So, that's an important thing to understand in your life. And in Uttara, the Vedas talk about it. It's really beautiful because this is the place in the Vedic sky where the demons, the asuras, were overcome by the gods, and immortality was established and invincibility. Those both came in Uttara, and that shows a lot about the power that can be achieved over darker forces. As an example of that in Uttara, the gods always win. The good guys always win, as long as they're not stuck repeating their bad habits, as an example. So the iteration that they're doing is always to move forward, to attain something greater. Shruti, Smriti, Purana. So Shruti is listening to what's heard. Smriti is remembering it. Every day, remembering I am divine. I am, I am the self, in a practical way. But there's a hesitation with these feminine signs to act. And I'm the worst of this. Sometimes I have things, I'll wait till the last absolute moment to do anything with it. And I'm getting better at that throughout life. But like for my move now, I've already got pretty much most of it done. And I still have 2 more weeks. But for a long time, I didn't move quick enough because too busy thinking about how this new strategy is going to affect the life. That's an example of it. And you can see the mongoose in there. It's like alert all the time, looking for the dangers, looking for the demonic energies that could pop up, the Sura energies, and what you need to do to stay in the light. Stay in the light. Uttara is the light of the sun. So let's see what else here. So Uttara being ruled by the universal gods, these Vishwadevas, it has the power to grant an unchallengeable victory, an apardrishya shakti. Its base above is the strength to win. Its basis below is the goal that one can win. And so from these, you can become the unchallenged winner. So don't give up. Don't sit in that earth stuck area and wait for it to shift in order to change. Build a strategy for it, and know that Nothing's perfect in the very beginning. It always needs iteration. And Shruti is like listening to the things that are being manifested and tuning into that. And Smriti is remembering what it was you heard. And Purana means knowing that it's coming from the source. It is the potential for anything to manifest. So you don't get stuck. So the strengths of Uttara and the shadows, in the strengths, you have a capacity to act with clarity and power in order to achieve your worldly goals. Those goals are generally aligned with the righteous purpose and in the spirit of what is best for all concerned. I'm one of those people, when I do my readings, I'm always expressing these principles are how I do Jyotish. So some people will say to me, wow, I felt so inspired by the time I was done with it. I thought I was a goner. I mean, I just thought you're going to tell me bad things about myself. And it's not that I don't talk about those things. Those patterns are there. But what you need to do is don't get bogged down. In the section of the chart, these people are striving, those planets are striving to reach their highest expression. That is the Sattvic region of the sky. And so there needs to be some inspiration and other things coming from there, and love and all of that. So your efforts will be helped by many blessings, especially when aligned with humanitarian concerns. So one of the things you'll see from people like Uttara is giving people more of an ear, letting them explain things more, giving them more time when they're asking questions and things like that. That's a very, and I do that all the time. I spend extra 3 hours every day answering questions from people that maybe had readings from me 6 months ago, going through some change and wanting to know. And it's like, 5, 6 lines code on a WhatsApp, and you've got it. So that kind of thing. And as a result of that, it's brought a lot of support of people. So if you have Uttara in your chart, and whether you have it or not, when the moon goes through there, you're going to feel this. You'll feel that emotional connection to those kinds of things, and to wanting to, to like get the victory, wanting to get liberated, wanting to achieve enlightenment. It's this lifetime, and it can happen. It can happen right there in Uttara. You're talking about the soul's energy. Tremendously powerful. So you have integrity and vision to sacrifice temporary pleasures for more meaningful long-term goals. This is absolutely true. Saturn, it just doesn't do anything quick. So it always is making, my long-term goal is, and I'm going to achieve that. So that is a strength. The shadow issues, you may be too driven at times, too idealistic. I'm guilty of that. Sometimes. So you may, and I take on way too many projects at the same time, and many of them I don't complete. And it's not just coming from Uttara, but that's true of all movable signs. When we have a movable sign, we love to start things, but we don't like to finish them, because once we start them and they're exciting, there's a lot of humdrum, and we're not people that are humdrum. Capricorn's a large sign. I never do anything small, and all Capricorns I know, they like to do big things. My teacher's a Capricorn, and he's got 155 million devotees around the world. He didn't do anything small, as an example of that. So, and that also shows that vision and the willingness to sacrifice, because getting to that point in any way takes a lot of work to get there, a lot of victories to achieve the longer goals that you're looking for. And so you will tend to take on a lot of them. And if you don't have the practical kind of people around you to actually give the things to, I mean, Capricorn should be where you're developing the strategy in your life, depending on whatever whatever house that sign is in your chart, based on your ascendant. So you'll see these things showing up in your life, even if they're in that sign and there's nothing there, you'll feel these things taking place. yeah, I'm definitely too driven at times. I take on way too much. And I had a lot of early disappointments in my life, but I didn't turn out bitter from it. When I was younger and they happened, like my first divorce, several jobs I lost because of changes in the industry, in high tech industry. And, you know, you want to like overcompensate and have excessive ambition to get back up on your feet and move forward. And so that can lead to a lot of unrealistic high goals and standards that you set for yourself and others. But this is definitely related to seeing reputation. Reputation comes out here pretty strongly for people, and it shows very strong. People have strong respect for the people, and they have good reputations. You'll see this. It's also true for um, like Magha Nakshatra in Leo as well, because it's sun related. So here we're looking at the 21st nakshatra, and it's at the very beginning section of Capricorn, right on that juncture, as I was saying with Sagittarius. It's just the first few degrees coming in, and that is where spirit takes form in a practical, concrete fashion. And so this shows the sun and how it sustains the power and all these relentless qualities of Sagittarius and Capricorn. And so the symbol literally is that elephant's tusk. And elephants, that is their prized possession. And so the nakshatra is ruled by the sun. It's in the 10th sign of the zodiac in Capricorn. So it's related to career, your highest impact on the world. Our biggest contributions are around our work. And our career is not our work, it's the impact of the work that we've done, which makes us well known. And that has some kind of value to the world. And so we spend most of our time working. It's the thing we work the hardest for is our careers. And so these are the pressures that you're willing to handle in order to make a difference in the world. So it deals with economy, government, politics, large business, large corporations, large spiritual and non-spiritual organizations. And you can see these are all in the spotlight right now because Saturn's in Capricorn and it just left Uttara. Now it's in Shravana. So this is a year of the moon because moon is the planet ruled by Shravana that we'll learn about. So Capricorn is all the inner structures, all the emotional boundaries, all the commitments as you're facing, tangible fears of the world. It's not that you're sitting in fear of the world. It's like you're developing your strategy. Oh, if this happens, if that happens, like when COVID started happening, the messages that started going out to people is, stock up. Maybe you need some emergency food at home. We don't know what might happen to the delivery systems, and there was scarcity in some of the supply chains, certainly with toilet paper. It's funny how what people chose to cover first in that whole thing. So these are all related to those kinds of things that were going on at that time. And so this is like really getting prepared, developing your strategy. And it's because you're trying to build an insulation from pain, but some people can take it to an extent and just build a whole, piles of materiality and everything because it's about structures, earth, all of that. Now, I'm guilty of that only for food and things like that, because I have to have certain kinds of foods and I also need certain resources for medicines and things. So these are all examples of where you'll see in this energy of Capricorn, people will start stocking up, they'll start building their resources, they'll build some kind of structural plan of how they're going to get through the difficulty. So those are serious, ambitious kinds of things, and you probably won't hear them telling people about it. I'm only telling you because it helps fortify what goes on here with Uttara. But a lot of people, they won't say anything. But you can see there's there's always a serious nature that wants to be responsible and yet also be spiritual. So you'll see these kind of energies, they want to spread it to other people. They want to make sure if those people are not planning, okay, here, let me help you with it. You'll see a lot of that because Capricorn is the sign of the Shudra, which is the worker, the servant. And Capricorn energies, that you'll find that people who are Capricorns do more for other people and they don't think about themselves very much. They care much more about other people. And that can be a negative because you, instead of giving yourself the attention you need, it's always on everybody else. And then when those people disappear in your life, then you're in this situation where you're trying to understand, what do you do next? And so strategy and restructuring life to remove the obstacles. Okay, obviously something didn't work. There's an obstacle. Let's try it again. And so as a movable Tamasic Earth sign, it's about all the strategic restructuring of organizations and timelines. So being a movable sign, it's always dramatically shifting and it rules time. Capricorn is the energy with Saturn, where Saturn makes its biggest commitment. Saturn's all about time. So when the structures are shifting, you can see we have the timeline shifting now, and we have people that are very happy with what's going on, or they've completely moved beyond it and are taking a spiritual view of it, and they're in the light. They're looking for the bright side of it. And then there's another group of people that are looking for, the negativity of it, and they're always spewing the negativity and always, that Mula stuff moving into Purva Ashada and Uttara Ashada, it just didn't go right in that situation. So we have people that choose to do dark things, and this is the shifting nature of that happens. And now that we're in Shravana, it's about listening. You're going to be hearing it all from everybody, because that's what that will show. But so this is an area where restlessness and changeability comes up, and you have to be able to iterate on the strategy of what you want to do, and it lets you remove the obstacles. You don't ever get anything perfect the first time. So in order to keep everything on course and healthy and safe, it requires a practical type of person to help implement that strategy. And so Capricorn people are the ones that develop the strategy. They're not usually the ones that make it work, because there's too much mundane energy that's present in that. So, as an example of changeability and restlessness, I like to move around. And when I work and work and work for days on end to put together maybe a class, or to put together a future one I'm developing, or working on some new ideas, after I spend a lot of time focusing, I love to just go out and get in the car and drive through the mountains, as an example. And I like to move a lot. So I'm always moving all over. Last 25 years, I've moved 25 times. So that's an example of that movable nature. And so look at that in your life. Where is the restlessness and changeability in your life? And how is that related to Capricorn in your chart? And we'll talk about that in a few moments when we start looking at the charts. So ruling planet Sun shows how you want to act with generosity, power, clarity, illumination, and integrity in order to live the deepest truth and purify your mind. And so back to the deities, these are the universal gods. They're all the benevolent forces of the universe that lead to a promised victory that we talked about above. So you have the other thing about Uttara Ashada is you have 1 foot in spirit and 1 foot in the world of desire. So this is where the gods achieved that victory over the demons and established invincibility and immortality. And I know for myself, there's always this question in my life: do I stick to Dharma, or should I follow what I'm interested in, what my desire is? And when I was a young boy, I used to tell people, I want to have two bodies. I want one that I can just experience everything in the world, and then I want another one where I just want to be truthful, good, and, of the highest order. And I never understood it until years later when I started studying the Nakshatras. And you'll see this tendency in you, like you'll always be asking the question, should I go with this desire or should I just, do the practical thing? And you'll see that coming out in your life. And the Vishwadevas are that energy that they're always there to help you with whatever it needs to be, but they're always also encouraging you for that, that highest level of invincibility and immortality. That's, that's like enlightenment. We're all born enlightenment, but we're enlightened, but we're not aware of it. So you have to wake up to that awareness. That's why the witnessing, observing, and sadhana breaks the barriers of being stuck and not being able to see what's going on. And knowing the knowledge is not enough if you're not witnessing it actually happening. And so this is why the present moment is so important in our life. And so ends this this lesson. And now what we'll do is let me get out of here, and we'll bring up some charts and have a little bit of a discussion here. Seemed like the last time we did that, everybody had a little bit of fun dealing with that. So I have the people's charts who have these nakshatras in it. So I have Kathy Casey. She has Mula. She could probably tell us a story around that. Amanda is dealing with Mula and Uttara Ashada. She's got K2 with that. Arvis has Rahu and Mula Nakshatra, Sun and Uttara Ashada. And next week we'll have some, he's got Shravana and Dhanishta. So if he's here with us, he can share his chart. We can talk about that. Let's see what we got for Amanda. She's got Venus and Mula. And then I think Melanie has a couple here too. She's got Jupiter and Mula, and she got Saturn and Purva. So let me pull back up the thing here. And who would like to talk about their chart? Who's brave today?
I guess since you have my chart up, I'll go ahead and start. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Jeffrey, can you hear her?
Yep, I can hear you now. I have to take my mic off. It blocks after I'm done talking, it blocks my ability to hear you.
Okay. Let's see. I guess where do I begin? I guess
Here.
Jupiter and Mula. Let's see.
It's your second house. How is that aligned with your values?
Well, I tell you what, the fact that it said deep philosophical mind, that definitely feels correct, because I've for a long time all kinds of philosophy has been my thing for a very long time, and digging deep into that, I guess that is why I like this now, Jyotisha. Same thing. So
and your Jupiter is Mula Trikona, so it's extremely powerful. I like Mula Trikona in many ways better than Exalted, because Exalted radiates out that energy, but Mula is like having your hands on the feet of the Guru, like really connecting to the root, right at the source. So what you're saying is true. Yeah, keep going.
I don't know. It just I do feel like Jupiter somehow is the planet that is my guru. I don't know why. Just feel that way. Um, as far as Mula, let's see what else. What else was it? Um, I'm
Like
not sure.
when you're doing your philosophy studying and things like that, are you like asking a lot of questions about the things that seem to be that need to be like maybe taken out of what it is you're studying? There's maybe too much, as they used to say, Felder garb hanging around in the what they're teaching you, and you want to uproot to get down to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes. Yes, yes. I'm really fairly new to this, and I get confused with the like the houses and the signs and the planets and the nakshatras. Like Jupiter, well, with Jupiter it doesn't really count because it's in its own sign. But do you, you know, like if you like Saturn, let's take Saturn for example. Saturn is not in its own sign. Um, so do you in its Purva, Ashada, that do you look at Saturn traits or do you look at the Purva Ashada traits, which is Venus?
Very good question. Very good question. And you know, Melanie, you're being fed with a fire hose in a backwards way. I mean, nakshatras are kind of the last things that you learn, but if you just look at the sign like your ascendant as a Scorpio, that is the psychological way you view the world. So the whole psychology is about kind of being, for you, being very devotional, high levels of standards, all of those things. And the way you're expressing that is in a Scorpio way, which is in many ways connected, well connected, probably the kind of friend that would take a bullet for anyone that we talked about last time. Is just that deep devotion of Anuradha. So and the sign is how you act. So first house is all about your body and your head and your well-being and your personality. It's the vehicle that you, and it's also your super weapon, your super ninja capability that's always there with you. Like you may notice just because of Scorpio being that sign of vulnerability, that you're always kind of maybe looking over your shoulder, wondering what's going to be taken from you next. And anything
Uh,
like that sound familiar?
yes, yes, yes. It's you know, there's always that security issue
Yeah,
that has to do with Scorpio.
yeah.
Um, I suppose.
Well, and then the next thing is you recognize Saturn's not in its house, it's in the second house. So, and the things you want to see is what's the intelligence of it. And so when you're using products like Parashara's Light, or if you go through, understanding the dignities and learning how to calculate them and all that, you don't need that. But like your Saturn is an enemy, which means in the experience of it, there's this cruel feeling you feel like maybe when you're at your job, there's all this pressure on you, and maybe you have an um, important role to play. I'm pretty sure you do with that Jupiter energy. What do you do for work?
Well, right now I'm not working. What I was doing was I was working in a library, and I started out in at the helping with research, and I love doing that. Research is my thing. And then ended up in a managerial role, and that was a lot of pressure. Yes.
Yeah. So because they saw that power of your Jupiter that you could handle a lot. And now, so then the way to read that is Saturn rules your third house and your fourth house. So the energy of your interest, your siblings, your friends, what you like to do, the things that shaped you when you were younger, and the things that bring you peace in your heart, like your property, your home, your mother, your inner life, that all is in your second house. It brings your interest into your job. It brings, with K2 there, you probably, that's probably why you don't have the job now. It makes you feel better not to have it. You can focus on your spirituality, things like that.
Right, right. And for a long time, I'm moving toward this more spiritual, learning about yoga philosophy and beginning in Jyotisha.
Yeah.
But Jyotisha is pretty new. So the Saturn part in Purva Ashada, that's also mentioned. You mentioned deep philosophical nature, so that still relates.
Yeah.
Saturn. I'm actually in my Saturn dasha at the end of my Saturn
Yeah.
dasha.
Yes, and so the Saturn dasha shows first. It shows your interests and what's in your heart. What brings you peace, which is the two things that Saturn rules. And then you look for the Saturn nakshatras, which are activated by that as well. So Anuradha gets activated because that's Saturn, and that's pretty. Also, Purva Bhadrapada in your fourth house is Saturn energy. So third and fourth to your interest and the things that related to like mother, related to those things about your emotional core and your peace of mind, all those things are what are active right now.
So that's those are Purva, Ashada, and Buddhapadra. That's all.
No,
And what did you say? Anuradha?
it doesn't activate Purvashada because it's Venus. It activates third and fourth energy, and it presents it to you in a second house way. It's like, uh, one would be like your fourth house would be more like the people at the library that you might have worked with. Like you have a clan of people that maybe you advised them on books, said go, oh, you need to read this book, or something like that. As an example, you may have had a book reading group, because that's Aquarius. So Aquarius is about a collective of people, like a tribe, your tribe. And maybe you don't have a tribe.
No, that does sound correct. That does sound correct. And why is it okay? It's Venus energy, so it's also Anuradha, correct?
No, because Anuradha is Saturn, and so it activates the Venus because of the Saturn energy that's running. You see that? Because Anuradha is a Saturn nakshatra.
Anuradha is Saturn. Okay.
I have a whole grid I'm preparing for you all that I'll give you that has all the nakshatras and all the planets, everything on one sheet so you can see it. And that one I'll send to you with the downloads and things tonight. But that'll help a lot because you'll be able to see them. And when you see dashas, the things that change the most are the first two. So Maha and Antara. And yes, you're entering or leaving soon this long period of Saturn that you've been going through, 18-year cycle. And how's that been?
Yes, it started off really rough during the beginning of that cycle, and it has gotten better.
Good.
So yeah, a little ups and downs.
Everything evolves. And when you get to like your middle age, the nodes, like they bring a lot of understanding to you when you're younger. They make you learn things, and it's usually hard lessons or eccentric lessons in many ways. But when you're as you mature and you grow, everything moves from the tamasic nature when you're first born, up into the much more of a rajasic engaging with people. And then at the time where you are in your life right now, you're not having some of those difficulties. Like, and when you get to middle age and you cross over and you start moving towards well, you actually had your second Saturn return just recently.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you noticed things got a little easier
Yes.
when you're over 60?
Yes, and that understanding too.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't just have to do with, getting older. It has to do with, your chart, that the understanding comes in, and that makes things easier.
And the Saturn there in your second house, which is about the things that you value, and it's also related to your self-esteem and the people you like to be around and how you want to spend your money, like you invested in this course. Those show a lot of you're a serious person. You're serious about your values. And you love going into the deeper details of wisdom, because Saturn is about wisdom. And it's not easy. You're struggling with some of it because you haven't learned the other structures. You see that?
Yes, yes, very much.
So once you understand the lay of the land of the chart from the sign and the houses, so thinking of like the signs themselves are called bhavas, which means a state of the experience of the experiencer. So when you look at a house, whether it's first, second, third, fourth, whichever, that's your experience of the self going through those actions in that sign. So it's going to have a psychological effect on it. Like your creativity is in a Pisces situation is about this ability to be very creative, to be able to think of things from a very a bigger picture level that's very expressive and very dreamy and artistic, and a level of appreciation for those things. And you got educated in that area of your chart. And so even though Jupiter's sitting in the second, it rules your fifth house. So it shows that your creativity is controlled by your values and your money and the people you want around you, and all the things that bring the real wealth of life to you. And you're a questioner. You just don't take stuff that people give you. You need to dig into it.
Absolutely.
But you love it. See how much you love it?
I do. I do.
So, that's the kind of thing. And you've got a Mercury coming up here. So you're going to, in March of next year, you're going to be going through some big transformations because it rules your 8th house, and your 11th. You may even move to a new community.
Oh, wow.
You have an older sibling?
I do.
Just one?
Just one.
Yeah, so, yeah, I won't talk about it.
Oh, I want to know now.
Well, the purpose is really to accentuate the Nakshatras. So, but we could talk about it offline.
Okay. Okay.
And by the way, for anybody, I'm available if you want to do readings with me. Over the next 2 weeks, I probably won't be because I'm in the process of doing so many things. But all right, what about Amanda? Is she out there?
Hi, Jeff. Yes. I want to start with the Mula Nakshatra. My
Okay.
Venus, I've already experienced my Venus Dasha, and I've had some very hard lessons that I've had to learn during that. And from with my Venus is in Mula Nakshatra, okay? And Venus rules love and romantic relationship amongst a lot of other things. And the one example in my life that comes to mind that I can, talk about with this, make reference to with Mula Nakshatra is my my beliefs that I had when I was from the ages of between the ages of 17 to the age of 28. I was in a very long-term committed relationship that I had started at the age of 17. And I grew up in a very traditional home that my beliefs used to be from that time period that, you know, as a woman, you grew up, you got married, and you had children. And of course, you know, I could still have my career now, but you know, it was always a traditional type of mindset where as a woman I had to, you know, get married and have children. Well,
Not
during
work.
my, go
That
ahead.
that would mean not work.
No. I, of course, work. Yes. Oh, no. No, it was that too, but I'm referencing specifically just the romantic piece of this Mula that I learned through. Um, Basically, at the age of 28, those beliefs were shattered, and I had a self identity crisis because of my ex and I split up. And so then I had to start pulling up the roots of Mula and figuring out, well, who am I now? You know, what am I going to do with myself? I needed to find my self identity. So I had to form new beliefs about me as a woman and about around relationships and stuff like that. And so I went into therapy. I did a lot of therapy, a lot of soul searching, and the destruction from that relationship really led to me finding myself, you know,
Mhm.
as an individual. So
Did
my
it teach
Venus,
you something about love?
what's that?
Did it teach you something about love and nurturing?
Yes, it did. Very much so. Yes, it did. So, but it led me to find myself and self love.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, and I have, for the past 10 years, I have truly nurtured finding myself. And I found Vedic astrology, which also helped me tie in a lot of understanding to me. And it was really like, you know how they say sometimes blessings happen through the most challenging things. Well, that's kind of how I've interpreted my lessons that I've learned through my Venus dasha. And now I'm fast forward to now, and I am in my sun dasha, which is my Uttara Shada, which
That's
is
right.
located in my 11th house, is ruled by the sun, and hence the term unchallenged victory. Well, now I find after all of that work that I did on myself, I finally feel very secure in my self identity today.
Yeah. And your ambitions. You know what you want, right?
Yes, very much. I am much more aware. It was like I felt like I was blind and I was just kind of going through the motions of life before this life-changing event had happened to me. And then it was like I became awake, I became conscious, I delved into, you know, figuring out who I was. It was like, well, why am I here? What's my purpose? I've got to research this. I've got to figure it out. I withdrew, you know, a lot, and I just kind of did a lot of thinking and researching and figuring things out for myself. And now I feel like I am finally able to benefit from all of that work that I did on myself. And
Yeah.
my guess is that must be reflected in the, you know, K2 Uttara Ashada Nakshatra
Yeah.
in my 11th house.
Yeah. So the Rahu energy opposite that um, gave you a big focus on creativity and children and education and maybe mantras. Aren't you studying mantras?
No, I have not really gotten into the mantras, but I am definitely into the Vedic astrology studying.
Great, great. So that's all about that, getting educated, creative, and it's in the sign of Cancer, which is connecting to other people and you know, the Punarva Su is Jupiter energy. You were right. Uttara Ashada brings the sun out for you, and sixth house gets activated because it's ruled by the sun, and you have a Viparit Raja Yoga because you have sun, which is your sixth house ruler, um, which is in the eighth house. So
Yes.
that shows how suddenly, shockingly, like enemies and illnesses and things, they just get taken away. Have you noticed?
Yes, I have noticed that.
When you deal with people that want to fight with you, it just never happens.
Well, another lesson I took from the whole Venus thing is that when bad things come up, my mindset now is, well, what am I supposed to learn from this? So I kind of view it all differently now. Whenever challenging things in life come up, I'm like, okay, what lesson am I supposed to take away from this?
Well, right now you're in Sun Venus, so the Venus stuff is all active again. So
Yes, I've noticed
Purva
that.
Falguni is active. Um, uh, the third and eighth house are active. And so because you have a stellium in your eighth house of 3 planets, this is really important to change, transformation, but also eighth house deals with occult knowledge like Vedic astrology. And in Libra is where you're counseling and you're consulting and you're speaking. You got Swati, you're looking at the Chitra stuff and so uh, all of that is being activated by the Venus Uttara Dasha, but Sun is driving it. So first of all, this is about work and dealing with difficult tasks and maybe looking at service instead of struggle, because in the sixth house, you struggle with it when you're younger and may have had a lot of disagreements. So here's one thing, for example, like, have you ever created things in your life and then find other people stealing it from you?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
I hope not.
Well, because six Leo, which is where all the sun energy, the light in your life is that's where it comes from, difficult things. A lot of Pisces, when you have Mars there, people give them too many opinions about what they're doing. But I've known some Pisces people with Mars there because that's the second house ruler. It feels like, wait a minute, you're taking things that I should be making money. You're an enemy. So when and another way to look at it, because your sixth house Leo is big, it's a big, large sign, which means the
Yeah, isn't it MAGA?
it's no, it's not in Magga, but you have Purva Palguni, which is where you're falling in love with the work and the service and
Oh, yes.
all of that. And your Mars energy is a great friend, so it's very people enjoy having you around when you're helping out, as an example, and you love doing it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So if that
I'm
was
very
in a
service
different
oriented
Nakshatras,
at work.
yeah, and if that was sitting in Uttara Palguni, where you feel like you've been doing all the details, this particular Pisces person that I knew was always complaining that people were stealing their ideas. And it's like in the field that they were working in, it's like nobody owns that knowledge. So
I don't feel that way at all. I don't
yeah.
see that at all in my life. Not yet. I mean, unless it's something to come, but no, not as of yet.
Well, when you look at your chart, it's a great friend. So that shows that that enjoyability that people have around you when you're there helping out. and it's in a dream state. So you may notice when you're doing that kind of stuff, you feel like you're in a dream. And you feel younger and much more enthusiastic about doing it. And it's related to the energy that you learned from your mother. It's called Mutrakarka. And
Very nurturing. My mom's very nurturing.
yes, and it's benefic, so it brings a real feeling of enjoyment and beauty about it. And these are the ways you can read the planets and all that, but until you start getting into the dignities and understanding the avastas, which will come, because you have a good foundation already just because of what you've been doing. And look, we've covered every single one of these nakshatras here, so now you can have all kinds of fun. But look at this, you have your Jupiter here, Chitra, you're interested in the brilliance that comes out of the occult knowledge. Like Ayurveda would be just as interesting to you as Jyotisha would, but I think the reason you like Jyotisha is because it rules Sag and it rules Pisces, your first house. So you're going through a transformation, even maybe
Yes.
is your body
It's
going
very
to?
it's very transforming for my soul, I feel like. The more I understand myself, the more empowered that I feel
Yeah.
about how I'm navigating life, I guess you could say. It's
Yeah.
been very transformative for me and healing.
Well, and are you psychic?
I can be, yes, and I do have premonitions in my dreams.
Yeah.
And I have my deceased ancestors do visit me in my dreams, and they do give me, I guess you could say, a forewarning of certain things. It's very interesting. Yes.
They teach you, right?
Yes. Yes, they do.
Because Moon
Um,
is your fifth house ruler and it's in the first. And it's in Revati where you let go of your all the skills you think you have, you let go of them. It's a
yes,
Mercury.
very much.
And when you let go of the things you thought were your skills, which you never were really yours, then the truth comes through. And there's no need to say anything there. You just be in silence and you get that knowledge. The other thing is that you have a great strength when you pick a partner. Um, Saturn means there's somebody who's willing to commit. And the partner may have been a great friend, maybe more like a brother than an actual partner.
Yes, towards the end of our relationship, I did kind of start feeling like he was a brother.
Yeah, he had a lot of conditions, right?
Yes,
Yeah, but he was brilliant.
very.
Yeah. So the other thing is your sun energy, because you're in sun, and Vishaka is Jupiter energy, Swati is Rahu energy, Chitra is Mars energy. But a lot of people, when they're dealing with debilitated sun, they think somehow that's negative, it's bad. But the truth is, the sun never goes out. This is in Libra, is where the sun doesn't show up in the sky in like November, October timeframe, and we have Diwali that happens then. And so the sun, it's debilitated because it's not shining outward. It's just not showing its highest expression, but um, it's holding a high standard because it's in Vishaka. It's giving you a chance to look at the righteousness of things, and you might not feel the courage. So there may have been a time when your partner, for example, when you're going through a struggle where he just went dark and you didn't
Toward
know.
the end of our relationship, he went dark. We had a very bad breakup. It was rather what people would call scandalous.
Yep.
He was cheating on me with someone else, and I did not know about it. So we ended very badly. And I actually cut off all ties with him because I needed to do that to heal myself.
So you said some great things. Sixth house is where things break. Immune system breaks, difficult things, things you don't want to do, you have to do, and like paying taxes, you know, all those death and taxes. Those are the two things that you don't want to do. And so here in that situation, you have the seventh house ruler in the eighth house. Eighth house is deception, lies, cheating, other people's money. But when you got divorced, did you get a settlement?
We were never legally married.
Oh,
We
okay.
were together for 11 years, but we were gonna get married, but we never really did. So
Yeah. So you can see the seven. So this, now I'm going to make a joke here, but
that's fine.
eighth house has to do with longevity, and it also has to do with um, sort of psychology, where you need to like go talk to a therapist and get your head straight. And this is the sign you do it in. But eighth house is also about sex because you don't know what other people's values are. And then until you make love with them, and then you start to understand that. But eighth house also shows those deceptions that can happen, and you've got the seventh house ruler in the eighth with some energy of sun, which you can see that there's that opportunity for cheating there, but you may not have noticed it. It's that,
I was oblivious to
yeah,
it, actually.
you don't see it and you can't control it. And the advice that's given with in the eighth house is you're not in control, and what you have to do is trust. And the divine, which is the ninth house, is always looking at the eighth going, let's just see if Amanda trusts or if she thinks she's in control.
And let me tell you, I know I'm not in control, but it's very hard for me to trust a partner. It
Yeah.
really is.
Well, Swati shows that they're just shooting the breeze. They're just telling you all this kind of, if they tell you anything, they're telling you stuff. But Swati's where they can sometimes tell you too much, and he may have just started spilling his guts, and then you're like, oh, don't want it, get out of here. And
Can I ever, do you see where that could maybe improve in
oh
my
yeah,
chart for,
so
for a partner?
yeah, so the issue is your chart is what you needed to learn, and it's the fixed karmas. You can't change it. That's how you'll interpret things. But you notice I've been saying witnessing, noticing what's happening. That's present moment. So that's what's happening. And that's where we look in the lower corner here. Look down over here in the lower right-hand corner where it says the transits. You see that? The Gachara down.
Yes.
So this is what's really happening right now. So you have K2 in your ninth house, so you're using all your metaphysical skills to like really learn the higher knowledge. And you're connected deep to it. It's like, I think you can see from, I forget what K2's in there. It might be an Anurada now.
It
Uh,
is. It is.
so you're loving all this past life knowledge and scrutinizing everything, looking at it, and there's parts of it you may be a little bit afraid of, things like that, but you may see some teachers coming back into your life that you haven't seen, and there may be some wisdom coming from the past life, because K2 shows all of that, and it's fixed. It's a time of deep devotion with that right now, devoting yourself into higher beliefs, knowledge. Ninth house is related to universal things like the legal system, marriage, all that stuff. So K2 is asked that question that you just asked me. What do I do about a partner? Will I ever get married? All that stuff. So K2 is where, it's time to scrutinize all that. use your universal knowledge. Use the knowledge that is your most metaphysical knowledge. And it's about your devotion, deep devotion to understanding that sort of alchemy of spirituality, because K2 brings all that stuff. It brings a lot of inner fire to do things. It brings a lot of stuff from the past, and it may make you step away from certain things as well. Avoid it, because you see, it's like
I avoid getting into relationships with men. That's a problem. I know.
well, you don't have to, because Saturn shows that you would get a partner who would be committed. You know, like when you see Saturn in the seventh house for somebody, it usually means that a partner could commit. But your Saturn, well, and it's in a great friend, and for a while he did. It's
Yes.
the eighth house were about his values. Mercury's there, and his money, and so he did what he wanted to do, and he had no ties. You know, you guys agreed, great friend. You know, rejoicing. Oh, we'll just stay together.
Yep.
So your lack of commitment to that is why, when it got difficult, he gave up.
I
That
agree with that because I think he really he wanted to move forward with marrying and having kids, but I just didn't feel like he was going to be mature enough if I would have brought a child into the relationship.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because the Jupiter thing is, you know, he may have been a bit of a child. And
He was still partying, and I was more focused on building, you know, a little more security, and he was still out there partying and stuff, and it was just really strange.
well, and Swati shows he was spreading his energy all over the place. So he wasn't just doing it with one. There's probably many in there.
Great.
And you know, there might even be a question of whether or not he was doing it when you weren't at home. He was at your place. The fourth house ruler is in the eighth, and you know, fourth is your property, your home, your heart, all that stuff, and your mother.
Yep.
So your mother warned you, didn't she?
Yeah, pretty much.
She told you her whole life story.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, and that's the Swati part of it. So that's just what happened. Don't hang on to that. Um,
Yeah, I
because
know. I have to
because
let that go. And I
well,
have actually.
yeah, and right now we have some really special things going on with Venus. Venus is in Pisces, it's exalted. You know, this is a time of love and romance, you know, and it started on March 16th, and it'll be there till April 8th. So and you know, you've got that moon sort of emotional sensitivity, and you know, maybe feeling a bit like you're a lost soul, but
Very much feel like a lost soul.
yeah, but you should trust in that psychic energy that you're getting there, because your ascendant is in Purva Bhadrapada, which means that you can see the enlightenment before you, and you're a mystic. You're a mystic person. You're ruled by
Yes, I
Jupiter.
am.
You're a Brahmin. You have knowledge. You're seeking knowledge. You know, it's fine. But that's going on. And then right now in your house of interest, Mars, Moon, and Rahu are all there. So I know a few Pisces, and they're looking around for people they're interested in. And Rahu's making them obsessed about you know, having somebody really that would be stable in their life, that would be a good friend and maybe a lover, and you know, could help sort of be part of their level of interest. And Moon's there in Rohini, which is like sensuality, attachment to the beauty and the pleasure and all that. So you have a time where you could kindle that. That could happen right now. And it would be somebody that, you know, the thing is, women don't fall in love with men's Venus. They fall in love with their Jupiter. Because a man can't inspire you for what's the purpose of marrying? What's the purpose of being with him? So women care
Jupiter
about,
is my Darakarka, actually.
yeah, and yeah, so here you get somebody who's like, was a little childish, as an example, but Jupiter right now is sitting in the house of ambition. You know, so maybe one of the things you want is a new community where you can interact with people and um, you know, fulfill your ambitions and stuff. And your Venus in the 10th house shows that you might meet that person while you're at work or where you're out in the world doing something. And
That
11th
would
is,
be more ideal because I spend so much time at work.
well, look around yourself because that's where Venus is right now. It could be right around you. And Sun is there, so you know it may be you may be you may be resisting. You may be pulling back from wanting to do that because your sixth house, um, because of the struggle that's going on in your life about that. Like Revati is Mercury energy and Purva Bhadrapada is Jupiter energy. So it further shows that you might be more interested in impacting the world than all of that. But Venus does show the indicator of the partner, and seventh house shows that there's somebody who's very discriminating, is a purist, things like that. Let's see, what do we have here? Yes, synastry. Somebody, Susan was saying synastry reveals a lot about relationships. That's right. Looking at the D9 is also another way. But I didn't want to get off in a tangent for the D9s. Most stuff you can see in the chart and through the Vimshotri. The divisional charts really drill down and show where strengths are. But since we're not doing a class on that, I'm not going to get involved in it. But maybe Susan could make a comment about it if she'd like. But synastries are probably one of the most complicated things, and because there's so much to look at. You know, there's different kutas to examine, and then there's charts that show numbers for kutas which you can't trust. And so, but that's the kind of reading, I think, what Susan's saying, that if you want to understand what's going forward, do a progress reading. But when you find somebody, go to an astrologer and have them do the synastry for you, and do a relationship chart before
Yeah,
you,
I've definitely thought about doing that for sure.
because sometimes, like you're pretty mystical and more interested in spiritual things, and I'm not sure this guy was, you know.
No, he was not at all. Actually, he was actually against a lot of what I liked when it came to, the astrology and stuff like that. But yeah, we were definitely opposites.
Well, and your
But I
dignity of,
appreciate your analysis of it all.
when your dignity of your Jupiter is neutral, which means scarcely around. So, like you were talking about the childish activity, and he was, maybe he wasn't around enough, or, he was always out in the world somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, and looking for eighth house stuff, looking for trouble.
Yes, looking for trouble is right. And he found it. So,
Yeah, so the good thing, and I think the most important thing, is everybody use your Mercury energy and don't take life so seriously. Just, you've got to laugh at the things that are going on, because life's pretty funny. And when we take things so seriously, we're not really seeing. But one of the things you said, that's very important to talk about, Amanda, is the issue of you know, you don't give up, you know, go and look for the deeper answers, which is what you're doing. You're digging around. Your K2 is letting you really dive into the depths of this and keep up that's a higher purpose for you. That's something
I
that's
haven't given up. I just observe a lot.
good.
I'm very observant now.
Good. And that's the number one thing, you know, that observation is the one thing that spiritual people forget to do, and they get caught in the illusion. And once you accept that Saturn destroys the belief in the world, and the hardship you had destroyed whatever that dreamy dream was that you had, that maybe everything would be perfect kind of thing. If the conditions were right, oh, it'll work kind of thing. And now what you need to do is spend some time integrating your knowledge with the transits that are moving around. And we're in a pretty interesting time because everybody's feeling this rambunctiousness of the Mars energy, and it's trying to calm down in Taurus. It's trying to settle down, and then Moon's there, which is bringing more attachment to it. And it's a good combination for you right now to start looking at things that interest you, including people, because you know that's a sign of familial ties and attachment, sensuality, and all that's active right now. And if you want a partner and you want somebody who you're somebody who cares about those things, it's important.
It is important, I think, but not just anyone.
That's
I
right.
just want, yeah, it has to be the right person. That's how I view it now.
Well, and that's why your Saturn, it shows you're kind of isolated. Like you were standing alone there with this partner, and you were isolated from him.
Yes, I
You took
will.
all your ambitions and all the things that you let go, and you just sort of tried to give him trust, uh, and it drained your energy and probably cost you a lot of money.
It did. It
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah, so that's all I'm going to say right now.
Thank you for your analysis. I do greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thank you, Susan, for the other comment that you made on the
Yes,
sinister.
thank you, Susan. I agree with you. It is synastry.
Can I make a prediction here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think I'm feeling strongly that you'll meet someone by the summer, like around May, June period this year. It's a good chance. And he would be older than you and very responsible, very committed, like Jeff was saying, and he will look at you like you're the star.
Yeah.
He will make you feel like you are so special. And he's going to be spiritual. I don't know if I said that. So that's what I'm getting from
Thank
this.
you. Thank you. I truly hope that everything you just predicted comes true.
I hope so too. I hope so too. And also about the synastry, the D9 would show like the true soul. That the D9 shows our purpose, our like where we're going in this life. And it kind of shows when we get older. So the D9, when you compare the D1 to the D9 and vice versa, you could see the attraction between people. And then if you look at the D9, you'll actually see what glues that together because it's the soul aspect. So just wanted to share that. I'm all
Thank
about
you.
relationships. So
What'd you say, Susan?
I said I'm all about relationships. I've been like obsessed with understanding the dynamics of relationships for the past like 20 years. I began like writing a book about it, but it took a back burner seat. So
Yeah, no,
Thank you very much for
yeah,
that input.
no problem.
thanks, Susan. Yeah, no, I'm like you, Susan, same thing. I spend a lot of time looking at those things because the hardest lessons I've had in my life, since I give all my time to other people, is was learning to love myself. And the biggest relationship you have is with yourself. And
Yes, I agree.
Also, the human design, I know, you know, this is Geotish and it's not Western, but I like
know
looking
both
at
of-
Poole
yeah,
Avenue.
yeah, that's
So
all
the
right.
design is amazing also to understand ourselves. So if anyone is interested, look into the human design.
Yeah, and actually it's a good point, Susan, because you can negotiate with Jyotishis if you have it. Or, you know, like what I did is I knew somebody who was an expert in that, and she said, "You do my chart, I'll do yours." And so it was really fun.
So what is your human design? Can you
It's,
tell us?
it's been like 4 years ago, but I have like a direct main line to God and higher wisdom, and I forget what it was. I think she
Are
said I
you
was,
manifesting?
I'm a manifestor. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
big manifestor. And
Cool.
it's 100% accurate. So
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing system for sure.
yeah, it
It is
involves,
called the Human Design. Is that a book?
It's an actual system. They have books. They're, you know, if you want to take the classes or buy the books, they're very expensive in my opinion, but it's worth looking into. You can look at information in the internet. They have articles about it, and I think YouTube videos might be out about it. But anyway, it's called Human Design.
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah,
You're
you
welcome.
can watch videos, and there are all kinds of really good books on it. And it's fun. You got to do it because it actually is a hybridization of a lot of deep knowledge, which includes astrology. And it's a very complex system that weaves them all together. And it's worth knowing. And you're in this period of time where you're interested in occult knowledge. You should definitely look at it.
Sounds good. I'll look at it. I'll give it a try.
All right. Now, we probably should wrap up. We're running a little over time, unless there was one other person that wanted to say something before we wrap up. It's been wonderful with the engagement so far. Anyone else want to pipe up? No,
It's Kathy here. I will talk, but I will forfeit it also if we've gone overtime.
I don't know. Kathy, are you here? I don't. Yeah, she shows here.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you've gone overtime, I don't have to talk. That's fine.
Oh no,
It's
go
up to
ahead.
you.
Because Mula, just tell your Mula story. Yeah, that's all right.
I have Mula, ruled by Ketu, and the Ketu's a very strong appearance in my chart to do with close personal relationships. Very strong. And anyhow, with Saturn in the third house in Mula, I've attracted people in my life, major lesson bringers to me. And I've accepted some people in my life that maybe some people wouldn't, they're not quite like me or whatever, but I have had a lot of unconditional love, and I accept friends that normally are not exactly my type. But then I try to teach them lessons when I notice that I'm very intuitive, and I notice they have certain problems, and I'll use myself as an example to teach that lesson. And I give them several chances when I see really character flaws within them or trying to use me in certain ways. And then if after these many chances, this is called the shadow side, I would call this, based on what you've mentioned in some of your notes here. But I will actually uproot the person from my life completely without any warning. And I just, after giving them so many chances, and I just don't want the conflict. I don't want to talk about it with them. I've subtly given them little hints and about behaviors and so forth. And in your notes, you actually said, you may be convinced you are breaking the person or think it's for their own good.
Yeah.
Be careful with this idea. I just wanted to express that this is very true in my life. I'm not afraid to show my shadow because it is what it is. And so I just wanted to mention that that's very true about what you said. And it's happened in many instances where I don't want to hurt. I actually don't even want to hurt the person by telling them how I feel about them. So instead, I uproot them from my life. And the other Mula lesson I've had is, I was in a 20-something year marriage, and I just uprooted my whole life without any fear, and connected with a blind man. And I had a very good husband that loved me, that adored me, and with 2 children. So I have this remarkable bravery, because some women are stuck in marriages their entire life. A lot of my friends from way back when, they think that they have to stay there for financial reasons or whatever. And I've always been, fearless. I mean, there's a lot of karma there, but it's time to move on. And
Yeah.
so anyhow, that's one of the shadow sides of Mula.
Yeah. And that Saturn, Saturn retrograde shows how sensitive you are to the Saturn energy, and how you're always evaluating that, what's the reality of this, and has it outserved its time? And when you look at Saturn where it's strong, which is in its own signs, and Mula Trikona, and where it's exalted, when Saturn's there, you can see some challenges you go through, and you can see, depending on the charts and everything, you'll see Saturn commitments, and you'll see seriousness and things like that associated. But when Saturn's not in those points of strength, it's kind of what has been said before by other ones, is that we keep questioning it and valuing it, and then it just gets too difficult. And when it gets too difficult, it's a shifting area up. It's time to shift, time to get out of it, time to uproot, and just like what you were saying, exactly. And in your period
You also
now,
said,
go on.
go ahead.
So I was just going to say your K2's in.
Well, you said be careful with it.
Yeah, be careful with it, because you
go
can
ahead.
ask questions about it, and you can also go away peacefully. You can just spell out the sensitivity that you're having. It's like, it's a little too, it's hard to maybe make this work, kind of thing. And I'm really working at it. I'm very much interested in finding some peace with it. But it also rules your 5th house, which shows the romance stuff as well. Your heart was behind it. You put a lot behind it. You put your piece out there for it, and you can see you're interested in that. It's very friendly energy, so it was a serene experience for you until Saturn. It's probably Saturn. When did that happen? Recently, within the last year?
What happened? You mean
When
uprooting a relationship?
Yeah, uprooting it.
The marriage was 21 years ago that I uprooted the relationship.
Okay.
And the individual relationships have happened quite often. I mean, not quite often, but several of them.
Yeah, I was just looking at the present state of where Saturn is, because it's been.
Yeah, that might happen again.
Yeah. Like the things you might.
Yeah, it's about to happen again, probably.
Yeah. Like, are you thinking about moving?
Yes.
Yeah, because Saturn being in the fourth, it's the ruler of the fourth, and it's usually where moves happen. Like when you're changing and you have the ruler of the fourth, it means maybe I'm going to move. And it's a sign of restlessness. So if you're not, are you still in Texas?
No, I'm at Mount Shasta in Northern California.
All right. That's perfect. Capricorn is mountains, tunnels, and caves. Fourth house. You're living there.
I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's all about
Yeah.
mountains, tunnels, and caves.
So,
And you know, there's always this thing about work hard until you see the light at the end of the tunnel. So you're under a lot of stress, working hard in Capricorn, you're being serious, you're paying back your karma, facing death, all those kinds of things go on. And right now with your K2,
yeah,
you're developing the ability to deal with some pretty intense things. Did you take
yeah,
a
I just love the illusion of it.
new
Say that again?
or did you take a new job?
No, I have several careers. I couldn't possibly take a new job.
Okay. So I was just looking at the K2 in your second, and it's the nodes are exalted. So there could be some interesting things in store coming out. One of your
Yeah.
yeah, one of your sources for money and things like that. Connected to your Mars. Yeah. Anyway, there's there's something
I'm
going
working.
on that could bring somebody in the middle of it, because you got Mars, Moon, and Rahu in the eighth, so some big transitions taking place. Even though you're in a K2,
Oh yeah.
Russia, it's changing it's bringing back some values you had from a long time ago, maybe even past lives. And Venus is kicking off the eighth house because you're in. Are you still in it? Yeah, you're still in that K2 Venus period. Um, so it's accentuating the eighth house stuff. Big transformations. And also eighth house a lot of times is very mystical.
Yeah.
So and you got the moon there, so there's definitely something pretty amazing going on right now. K2 times are fun times. And Mula's K2. So you're uprooting.
Yeah, I'm getting to study a person that I've been studying, a Purva Ashada, Uttara Ashada stellium, many planets in the ninth house and one individual. And it's very interesting, most of what you said today. And, I wonder when there's that stellium is combined with both nakshatras that are, connected together. It seems like I see that a lot in many charts.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
noticed that as well?
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of half transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that,
Yeah, when the stellium shows up there in that movable sign, you're either developing some new strategy for your heart, or you're ready to leave where you are and go try something different. And I think a lot of, like, if you get readings from people from India, they're going to fill you with fear about K2 and Rahu. And it's always, everything's afflictions and everything's superstitious. And, I've had clients come to me and the stories they tell me, and I say, where did you hear that? Did you go to an Indian astrologer? And they'll say, yeah. And when you tell them what their chart really says, if you've been trained well, there's none of that in it. But, 200 years ago, India left, they gave it all up. And when they saw the West was interested, they started running back. But 50 to 100 years had gone by, the lineages died. And so they didn't have anything to plug into. The mind-to-mind transmission was gone. So, and this is what my guru said to me in 2017. He asked me to come to India, and he started telling me it's such a corrupt science because, black mustard seed feeding a crow on Saturday over your left-hand shoulder. I'm like, where is that in Vedic astrology? And that's what they do. They take some of the Vedic astrology and they blend it with what they know from Prakriti with Vedic astrology. And one is about form, the other one's about intelligence and consciousness. And they're not the same. Like looking at Tamasic from an Ayurvedic standpoint is a lot different than looking at it from the intelligence of the consciousness. And, they're feeling the consciousness through the pulse, but there's very few astrologers that do both. They're really great when they do it both, but you'll see a lot of that that corruption that will show up in the knowledge. And they'll tell you a story about yourself, and they'll be absolutely certain on this day you're not going to, and then when you go through and look at the Vimshotri and you look at, the Navamsha, and you do a whole bunch of triangulation, including, maybe even looking at the padas from the Jaimini perspective, you won't see any of that stuff. So you have to be careful of those things. And I love this group because we're all going at it from the same perspective. You guys know Barry. Barry and I are good friends. He understands astrology extremely well. I'm not sure all of who you've had for teachers, but because we've met in this way, you guys are all serious about it. And I haven't heard anything weird come out of any of you. So this is the kind of company you want to keep and interact with teams like this where we can share our ideas, and nobody should ever feel shy about anything because there's no right or wrong. It's just how we interpret it. And like I really appreciate Susan speaking up before, because I haven't been looking at that because I'm focusing on Nakshatras. So we all bring so much to the table here. And it's great. I enjoy this class so much. We have we're in this is the 7th one. So I have the 8th and the 9th ones. I've already finished the classes for it. And I might have a delay on delivering the 9th one because I have to move out of where I am. And depending on where I'll be at that time, I might need to move it a week or something to finish it because I won't have any place to connect and do a Zoom from. I'll be on the road. But I have all that stuff done, and I'll send you the charts that I put together, which compare the nakshatras and show the female and masculine versions of the animals, how they play around with that a little bit when you're looking at the charts. Throw the animal in there and see what you can enjoy about it. It's really amazing when you add them up. And then the last class, what I'd love to do is take you through the hero's journey and have each of you explain your own story. Which, when you look at the end of the slides that I have here today, I always leave those in, which is slide 15 in this one. And all you need to do is, on the left, shows you the things that you're dealing with, each planet brings to you. And then if you just build your example and go look, where is your moon? Because that's going to show the emotional, psychological temperament and what makes you seek and feel peaceful. And then break it down. You know, where's your moon? What's its nakshatra? And, you know, what's the deity of it? Who's the deity? What's that related to? You know, and if there's several planets there, I gave you my example from my chart. I suppose I should probably put my chart in here so you can use it as an example. But you'll be totally surprised. And if you then you can do an analysis on the sun alone, and you'll see all the way that your father treated you in your life. You go through, look at the sun nakshatra. Like my father treated me like a king. I mean, I looked like him. I came from the same lineage. He was always telling me about his father and the great grandfather, and you know, the heritage going way back to John Paul Jones, who was one of my ancestors, and you know, all that stuff. It's my sun nakshatra. And so play around with that too, and you'll begin to see the story of yourself. The script is on the left, and on the right is what your actual stuff is. Look at your ascendant. Look at what rules it, and you'll see this sort of superpower in your life and what you're really here for. It's just amazing. And like for me, I just work all the time. And you know, Saturn's my ruling planet, and I'm always learning when to let go and find peace and all that stuff. But so that's like the next thing to do, looking at the rebirth and letting go kind of thing. Just as you're going back and reviewing the notes this week, build one of those for yourself, and maybe at the end of next Saturday we can share those too. That would be kind of fun. Anybody interested in that?
That sounds like fun, like a real challenge.
Yeah, it was the first time I did it, it was the most fulfilling I'd ever felt. And I didn't even do it. My teacher did it for me. He said, let's just use Jeff as an example.
Can you go through your own moon? Like, how does that play out emotionally speaking?
When you go through your own moon?
Yeah.
So I have my 8th house is Leo, and I have Moon, which is my ruler of others, in the 8th house, and I have Mercury there, which is my 9th house ruler and my 6th house ruler, with Sun in Magga. So my guru told me that I was a king. I was the king around Buddha years ago, and he called me Kukaraja, and I thought it was a joke. So, I just thought, oh, it's just some story. And I told somebody about it, and they Googled it, and he's a Mahasiddha that was around Buddha. He was a king, and he was known as the dog king. Well, I went out and bought statues years ago of something I called Guru Dog, and it's a Weimaraner sitting in Bhava Samadhi in Chin Mudra. And I had a Swami come stay with us, and he brought it out and said, oh, I belong to this lineage of dogs, this master. And he said, where did you get this? And that was his way of saying, can I have it? So I just gave it to him. And it described all these things which my guru had told me about myself in that lifetime. And I was absolutely shocked when I started doing it. But if you just read it from a chart perspective, all my partners have cheated on me. So 7th house ruler goes into the house of cheating, deception, and things like that. There's other ways to look at it too. But that's my story, is that, every person I ever dated, and it's not that I'm a difficult person, it's just, that's just the karmas that came with it. And so I've learned a lot of lesson about, instead of trying to find my love by looking outside myself, when I went through those breakups, I spent time after 32 years of marriage with 2 people, learning who's Jeff, because I was always doing everything for everybody. And then, never giving myself any time. So, you know, I really learned to understand who I was and to learn to love myself again. And now you know, I don't feel bad about any of those things. I'm good friends with at least one of my ex-partners, and the other one is just remotely distant because they live in a different country. But I don't hold any enmity towards anybody. It's just, you know, it's just what happens when you start to see the moment and things happen, they happen for a reason. Otherwise, they wouldn't happen. And that's kind of how I've looked at it. But you
I don't
know,
think that you should, I don't think that you should think that you're only going to find
no, I don't think that way.
Okay,
No,
because I would interpret that a little bit differently. I would
yeah,
say all the wrong partners will cheat. However, if you find the right partner, the partner who will have a very strong spiritual connection, because the eighth house deals with the occult. So
yeah,
your relationship should be anchored into a very maybe even tantric, you know, like
yeah,
the tantra would come out here.
absolutely. And I'm extremely psychic because I have moon and sun together in the eighth house. So I have my third eye is completely awake because that's moon and sun rule Ajna Chakra. And so I didn't understand that when I started recognizing that there was a lot of awakening that happened when those people left my lives because I was forced to look inward.
Mhm.
And so I'm extremely mystical kind of person. I have Venus debilitated in my ninth house, but it's my Raja Yoga Karaka. It's my most powerful planet. And I only have people only come to me through the grace of my connections to gurus and things like that. Like I don't advertise, I don't market, I don't do anything like that. Not anymore. And all I have to do is have an intention that it would be nice to have a few readings this week, and then all of a sudden my calendar fills up.
That's
And
wonderful.
yeah, it is because I'm a marketer. I spent 35 years in high tech. I was one of the top marketers on the internet. And I just, you know, I did that for my ex-wife. And then when we split up, I was not interested in it anymore. And like I said, you know, before to, uh, I think it was Amanda that I was talking to, but what I was saying before is that the chart is how you feel it. I don't feel it that way anymore. And exactly what you said to me, Susan, happened to me already. I've already met somebody who's very spiritual, who's all the things that you just described.
That's
And so,
great. So you
yeah,
guys are together?
not yet. That's part of why I'm moving.
Okay,
And
good.
and so it's just I'm just checking it out. I'm not moving in or anything, but
That's
uh,
wonderful.
yeah. So it's because they have a totally unique view. They come from a totally different culture. They come from Cuba, and they're also an astrologer. So when we talk about all kinds of mystical stuff, but I have a much deeper background in Vedic knowledge than her. So she's always interested. She's also a Pisces. She's interested in learning more of that. So it's not just relationship things. There's also those deep spiritual things that you feel and the willingness to ask questions and really feel like friends communicating it. And yeah, it was very interesting. And
Have
when
you
Rob
looked at your
shifted,
synastry?
what's that?
Have you looked at your synastry with her?
Yes, yeah, it's
Okay,
pretty good.
good. Make sure you look at the D9 stuff too.
Yeah, I looked at all that.
Okay, good.
I've gone over it with a fine tooth comb uh, because I'm actually going to go. And I spent time with her only once. I mean, COVID came and she lives in Florida. I live in Colorado, things like that. So it wasn't practical to do it at that time. And and then she went back to South America for a couple of trips and things. But yeah, she actually got a reading from her teacher, and she told me what it was. It didn't make any sense at all because when you look in her chart, it sees her partner's from a foreign country, and she left Cuba and repatriated to the U.S. and and I had an Akashic Records reading done about 6 or 8 months ago, and the guy, he even named the area where it was going to come from, and I didn't understand him until this person showed up, and when they showed up, it just connected everything. And then I looked at the chart and I saw the dashas running, and I'm like, okay, this could happen. So
That's
we'll see.
awesome. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, well, be happy when it happens. I'll let you know. And if
Good.
if it doesn't, it's okay too. I'm a Saturn guy. I'm a realist about everything. So, um, but also a lot of you, it's really interesting. You have significant planets in Libra. It's great for counseling, great for Vedic astrology. Great for any kind of advice giving. Um, we have such a great group of people here. I'm honored to be in all of your presence.
I feel the same.
Yeah, that's the way things should
Thank
be.
you, Jeff. Yes, this has been a lovely course for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was supposed to teach it for my teacher, but he got too impatient, and Barry called me and said, "Hey, Jeff, why don't you come teach Nakshatras?" And I said, "Oh, it's perfect, because I'd rather teach it with your people than to teach it with my teacher's people."
I'm glad that you chose to teach it with Barry.
Yeah, it
Yes,
was.
me too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's really exciting. It's been something that I've put a lot of attention behind. And one thing that is so beautiful about it is it really brings out your spiritual nature when the more you dwell on it in your chart and do what we're doing, kind of scatting around it. It really helps you to appreciate deeper parts of you. Like I had to dig to find the shadows and all that stuff. My teacher wasn't teaching that. I went out and I dug around and I found a whole bunch of sources that lined up with what was going on. And then I found a very old dark document from my teacher. And it lined up with all of the things I was saying. And I thought, wow, I'm going to fold this into the class because he's never taught it this way. And so it's wonderful to hear the feedback from all of you.
Yeah.
It's
Hey, are
great.
you planning on going to Sedona? I heard that they're going to have it in person this year.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of moving to Sedona at one point because I love Sedona, but it's an expensive place to live.
Yeah,
So
but I'm talking about the Vedic Astrology Conference.
yes, I went to the one last year and I attended it online this year.
Oh, you
And
did? Oh, I must have missed you when I
um,
went.
I was sitting out watching most of the time in that one, the last one, not the one online. I was watching the table for Sam Jeppy. And
Okay, I see.
I was sitting out there doing readings for people that were
I was hanging
everybody,
out with Manoj and Kurt by the Murtis.
people that didn't go to the classes, they would wander over, and a lady wandered over and she had her chart. She goes, "I don't know about any of this." And nobody was around, and she had a real difficult life, and I just gave her a reading, and this other lady was sitting in the corner just watching me, and when the lady left, she just went like this and just said, "Thank you for doing that."
That's
The
amazing.
lady had been under some incredible stress. She grew up and was abused her whole life, and um, it was so healing to do it for her. That sometimes I don't know how all you feel about it, but I don't always charge people for readings because of the fact
Yeah, neither
that
do I. Yeah,
we can reach people, and part of it's so much seva oriented, and it doesn't all have to be about money, and because we're all blessed by the grace of the knowledge. So that's the
yeah.
other thing I do, and I think you should dedicate at least a quarter or a half of your time to service to other people.
Jeff, I actually don't do readings at all. I basically got into this to find myself and to understand more about myself. But I don't give readings. I just, you know, sometimes I look at friends that I'm with, and I'll look at that and I'll just kind of see where we connect. And they don't know that I'm looking at it, but I do it for my own information, I guess, and curiosity.
Yeah, like my second wife, I bought her a Jyotish course, and she was trained as a Jyotishi. She's very good Jyotishi. Been doing it, I don't know, must be close to 16 or 17 years by now. Um, excellent Sanskritist and all of that. And but I never got any readings. She would say, "You're just too close to me. I can't do a reading for it." And so, but I was the one creating all the courses that train people in it, even though I didn't understand it 100%. I understood a lot about it, but not enough to do readings. And it was her thing, so I didn't want to get in her light. So it just becoming a Jyotishi was completely by luck. I mean, I was in another car accident and I was ready to give up and I didn't know what to do. I was sitting at home and I started seeing this course thing and I thought, well, maybe I'll take that course. And I took it and I started learning things about myself that never came from the relationship because she was so busy and working in that area. And so the more I understood myself, the more I realized, well, you know, I've been studying this for like 45 years. I should be able to do this. And it not only grew in me so fast that people like I do about 2,000 readings a year. That's how many I do. And I've done over 4,000 in the last couple of years. And it's only because my guru brought me to India and introduced me to all these people all over the world. And I work with South America. I work with the top life coach in South America, and I have a crowd of like 500 to 1,000 coaches who watch me talk and do readings with me and stuff like that. And it was that caused it to happen because people were just like, "Hey Jeff," like it's at the ashram, and there'd be 50 people standing in line at my table waiting for an appointment. And I was like, "Where are these people coming from?" It just happened. I mean, it wasn't like I was trying to achieve anything. And when I do the readings, the people would walk away and say, you just blew my mind. And I was like, I just gave you a reading. It shouldn't be that big a deal. And then everybody started telling everybody else. And so for me, it's like it's all just happening to me is the way I can see it. And um, it's beautiful because I can't get egotistical about it. It's like it just happens. That's the way it goes about. And like even when I'm sharing with you some of the stories here as we're talking, I'm like, you know, I'm just throwing it out there. That's why I ask you the questions and don't state it just to see how you're going to respond to it. But Jyotish is by far the best way to know yourself. And
I think that really deals with like your moon being in the 8th house too. You
yeah,
know, it's natural for you to do the readings because of the moon being there.
yeah, yeah. And I also have had very close relationships with gurus. It's like I was very close to Maharishi. I had a lot of private meetings with him, and I'm very close to Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I was one of his first people around him. I met him through Maharishi in India in 1980, and you know, very weird kinds of circumstances. And we did a Panchanga course about a month ago, and in the live class, Sam says, "Well, let's see what Jeff's got in his Titi Pravesh." And you know, we were just learning about it. So like we're doing here, he just said, "Oh, let's look at Jeff's chart because he's like connected to all these gurus and everything." And I was absolutely blown away by what it said. It said exactly what my guru said to me. And it, it like makes your eyes fill up with tears because you realize what your instrument, why are you here? What's the instrument you're here for? And in the Titi Pravesh, it shows you know, the cycle that you were born in, and I was born one day after a new moon. And so, you know, in a dark cycle. And when I understood, okay, so what does that mean? And then I started looking at my life's areas and researching. And mostly what I do is just research. I just research everything. And I have Jupiter and Ketu in the 6th house in Gemini, and they're both in Punarvasu. And I was born in a Kalasarpa yoga between Rahu and Ketu, with everything from Gemini all the way to Sagittarius, nothing on the side, on the left side of the chart. So my life has been just like this, up and down, just like that. Everything brought really fast and taken away just as fast, and now it's all coming back. So it's just amazing what we go through. And when you start to witness those things, what happened to me was my consciousness just started waking up, and it was going so fast that I didn't even know whether to believe it or not. And so I would like have to talk to my teachers, and my Jyotish teacher just doesn't have the understanding on the spiritual level to be able to express that to me. So I'd have to go to my gurus or whatever, but I was having all these mystical transformations that were happening, and that's when the Nakshatras started coming out of me. And I literally started having experiences of God consciousness, because those are the deities that they're driving the bus here. They're making everything work.
And
And
if
the more,
you're doing Kriya Yoga, it's really connecting you.
yes, yes, and that was the thing, and more. So all of what I'd been taught my whole life about states of consciousness, I went through every single one of them, and didn't even understand it, but just this feeling of being of service to people is the only thing I care about at this point in my life. And but a lot of surprises come through that. You know, 12th house can bring a lot of surprises, and so does the 8th. And honestly, I'm surprised by the whole class here. We have such great caliber of everyone. Even though some of you have mentioned that you don't have a lot of Jyotish background, but you're going to make great. You're going to make a great Jyotishi if you just keep going forward with what you're doing. And I hope after this class is done, we could like have times where we gather together and share knowledge with each other. Having a community of Jyotishis is wonderful. And Barry and I have actually formed an organization called, it was like 3 years ago, we formed it under a very auspicious Muhurta, and it's called the Parashara Institute. And because our guru has been pushing us both to teach together. And Barry is just like a brother. So I'm coming to Fairfield in the next couple of weeks, and he and I are going to hang out and figure out what we want to do together. But it's time for us to bring a big collective of people together.
I agree. It's time to join forces here.
Yeah. And so this is why I called it Vedic Council, because it was never going to be about me. All I wanted to do is run an organization of a whole bunch of Vedic astrologers all around the world. And since I'm getting so many people coming, I can't do the readings all the time. So I want it to be like, it's like a consulting, a Vedic counseling firm. We all work together, and we distribute the leads, because the sum of all the parts is worth more than any one of us. And it was patterned off of a business I used to run 23 years ago, which was a consulting firm that we sold for millions of dollars. And the thing is when you have partners that can do reading, then what you need is somebody to promote the different personalities and the different skill sets. And right now,
Promotion, it works.
yeah, when people come, that's what I wanted to do, is to promote the team as the leader of the organization and show everybody's talents and have videos and interviews, and then people can just book all online through vediccouncil.genbook.com, and they can pick whichever astrologer they want. But my problem is Most of the people only want me. And so I've been raising my rates to make it easier for them to say, oh, you should really go to this person, go to that person. And then when we all sell different services, because I do readings and progress readings, compatibility, but I also do life coaching where I do a meeting a month. It's very expensive. I mean, it's like $500 per session. And several people are doing it with me, 2 of those a month. And what you can do is go so deep into solving problems for them. And it's like they're coming to me. I just posted, I said, I have this is what I'm going to be doing. And I have like 3 clients already. And selling those kinds of things to people, you take a piece of it and you put it in the central fund for the whole organization. And then when we have a quarter, we share the profits. And the people that sell the higher end programs make more money because the percentage of what they get from it that's put aside is part of the bonus they get on a quarterly to a semi-annual basis. And then everybody's empowered to sell everything, and everybody's empowered to be great skill. And there's no pressure on you having to try to make your own because it's a collective of people. We all get together and we do spiritual practices. Every 6 months we get together as a team to be collective and to share our ideas. And I have like three or four Jyotishis right now that I do it with, but they're kind of inconsistent because they do yoga on the side or they do something else. And but that's always been my vision, is to have, and I was told back in 2008 by Akashic Records guy, he said, you're going to run something that hasn't been in the world in 200 years. And he said it was going to be he said it's a worldwide counseling organization, he said. And I hated the reading when he told me. I just thought, you're just full of it. And then in 2017, I was walking in Longmont, and I was listening to music, and that Akashic Records reading came up. Every single thing he had said had happened to me between 2008 and 2017. And I just sat on the curb and I went, oh my God. So I went home and first thing I did is I bought VedicCouncil.com as my domain name, and I started working through it. And I started bringing my friends who do Jyotisha, who I'd taught to meditate, things like that, brought them together and made them part of the team. And when I went to India, they were handling all my readings from the United States. So that's what I would like to see come out of this. And this is what Barry and I are working on, a way to like bring a big collective of people, and we all learn from each other, and we all profit from our brotherhood, our sisterhood, and our gathering.
That sounds amazing. I'd love to be part of that.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in every single one of you. You all brought up some great points, and and Barry and some of you with your teachings have had different teachers than I've had. So you guys are several of you have talked to me individually, and you've shared things that were extremely insightful. And I don't know everything. So you talk about some yogas I've never even heard of, as an example. So that's the other thing. As a collective, we get together and we work through situations where we can do analysis together, and we all learn through that. That's the most fun, and that's what we're going to create. So it's almost 2:30 out here, so I think we should sign off because you're going to have a long video here. And have a wonderful week, each of you. Let's do the closing chant before I turn off the video and everything. So let's just bring our attention back to the present moment. Take a long, slow, deep breath in. Give thanks for the camaraderie here today. Om Masato ma sadgamaya. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May everybody be happy.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye. Thanks.
Everyone.